I know what you're all thinking. How many good-looking men can you fit in the one studio? You're welcome to OTBAM. Stephen Kelly, how are you?
Not too bad, Nathan.
Kieran Donaghy.
Good, Nathan. Not too bad, boy.
Tell you, we nearly got a decent five-a-side team.
Two more now will be grand.
Two more. Maybe we'll do a recruitment drive over. We'll do a recruitment drive over the next couple of hours. How are you keeping?
Good, yeah. Looking forward to it, yeah.
Very good, yeah.
You're well, yeah. You're home for a few days.
Yeah, home for a little while. Easter holidays. So.
What's the first thing you do when you get back to Dublin?
Dublin Zoo.
Oh yeah.
I was hoping he was going to say Point Egan.
No, yeah. That's changed since the kids have come along. Yeah, it's Dublin Zoo these days.
Kenny Cunningham was in yesterday. Was heading to Tato Park.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That's usually up there, but the weather wasn't great the last few days.
We didn't get a review of Tato Park, I don't think, yet from Kenny.
No,
you keep it local.
Yeah, no,
Don't venture too far.
No, Dublin Zoo first, and then if the weather's good, Tato Park, and it should have been open this week, but the weather's not been that great, so we had to avoid there a little bit.
It's changing. Put it on the list. I'd say.
Put on the list, yeah. Summertime.
Do you like a bit of Thunders, like Kenny? Do you know Thunders?
Yeah, no, Thunders. Yeah, Thunders Bakery.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like a bit of Thunders. There's one down in Recondo there, not too far from me.
You're just not as hardcore on it as Kenny is.
No.
Any other products you'd like to plug? Kenny basically came in yesterday and gave so many mentions that sorted them out for the next 6 months.
He's paying for no coffee or buns.
Well, I presumed he arrived at Tato Park and they just rolled out the red carpet.
Mr. Tato there to greet him and shake his hand and bring him around.
Yeah,
sort of like Michael Healy-Rae does for the FAI when they arrive down.
Yeah, looks after them.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that red carpet when the FAI arrived down to Kerry?
I have, yeah. It's on the runway in Farnborough.
When the private jet rocks in, you're all waiting.
Yeah.
So we've a lot to get through this morning. We're going to talk football, obviously. Lionel Messi, once again, last night, delivering the goods. Barcelona beat Manchester United 3-0. Ajax through to the semi-finals as well. Bloody hell, though, Messi's first goal last night.
Yeah, just when he comes inside and he opens up, it's just his touches, his vision, and then just a pure genius he has to be able to just slot the ball into that bottom corner. Like there's so much he's got going on for him. He's probably the most gifted player ever to grace the field. Like, I mean, I know this conversation goes on and it's a debate, but as a natural talent, there can't be anybody better. All I haven't seen than Messi. It's just phenomenal what he's able to do.
Yeah, I think you're right as a natural talent because Ronaldo is the athlete and he's cut and he can jump this high and he's the best header of the ball ever to play the game. But Messi's like, you know, we've all played PlayStation. You know, we've all had the ISS Pro and the FIFA back in the day. And Messi, it's like playing with him on the PlayStation. You can cut in, you know, if you turn on this side, he can curl him with his left foot. But yesterday, like, to get the lucky break when Young went in to kind of basically have a big tackle, a big statement tackle and win it, he jumps over that and wins it. And then just the touch through Fred's legs to like, it's so quick, it's magic. You can't learn that he's, you know, we heard Dunphy talking about street soccer players before, Robbie Keane and Duffer and them. And that's what he has, is just he's learnt that. That's in him from a young age.
It's just God-given talent, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just nothing else. But like that's a little touch through the legs and to open up and put in the bottom corner. And like I said, he does things that you just can't imagine doing. That anybody just tried to do them and they wouldn't come off. But for him, that always happens. And his balance and his strength around his core and his legs. When he gets hit, he just stays up and rides challenges.
Yeah, rides the tackle.
Well, that goal he scored last night. If that's any other player, if that's a goal scored in the Premier League next weekend, it's goal of the month. It's contender for goal of the season. We're absolutely raving about it. It's probably not even the best goal he scored in the last couple of weeks.
It's expected of him.
As soon as he knocked the past Fred and he took the next touch, we all, like, I think all of us there were like, if I was a United fan, I'd be like, no.
But the quality of the finish, as you say,
but
into the side netting, into
that every week.
Like there was absolutely no chance.
No chance. No.
That street football obviously gives you that toughness as well, is the thing, because like, they did him in the first leg. Like Chris Smalling nailed him in the first leg. He picked himself up. And last night, like Ashley Young, that was a horrendous challenge. Desperate, just threw himself in there. Take the man, take the ball, whatever. Yeah. But he stands up to the challenge.
He's South American as well, though. The South Americans have a little bit feisty about them. They're hardy, They've been, you know, and but his just core and his balance, I don't understand. His legs must be so powerful around that area, because when he does get hit, you see in the game, he was driving the ball into the corner at one point. There's three of them around him trying to knock him over, and in the end, they end up getting a free kick. But it was just poise, balance, awareness of where players are coming at him, and then able to ride challenges. It is unbelievable. Like, I don't think you're going to see a player like him. Like I said, Ronaldo for me is the best athlete out there. If you're to make a player in a lab, you'd design Ronaldo. Yeah. That's what you'd pick. But for natural talent, Messi,
you couldn't make Messi in a lab.
Like, no, you wouldn't. Yeah,
like if somebody designed him, you'd be like, that's not going to work.
Not chance,
As a right back, who would you prefer to have on your team? Messi, who's always drifting out there giving you the out ball, or Ronaldo, who's going to make you look like the best crosser of all time?
I don't know.
Take them on both sides.
Exactly. Just play both of them. They can have my place. Messi can play left back, or I can play left wing.
You can have a think about it over the course of the show. Who's the best player you ever played with?
Played with?
Most skillful player.
Oh.
Think about it.
I'll
think about it. You can reveal all.
I'll reveal all later.
A little bit later on.
Hard one, yeah.
All right, here's what's coming up on OTBAM this morning. So as always, we'll start and we'll talk you through the sports pages, which is dominated by Lionel Messi and, of course, everything going on at the FAI as well. We will reflect on Manchester United's exit from the Champions League. We'll talk to Andy Mitten, who was over at the Camp Nou last night. We'll get Stephen's thoughts as well. The Shot Clock coming up live this morning. Kieran is in studio with us. We're going to be talking about the return of Tiger Woods, the NBA playoffs, the battle for the top four, Katie Taylor, all coming up around about 8:30. Then we will chat about the FAI. Aaron Shearer, lawyer, is going to join us in studio just before 9 o'clock to get the legal aspect of what's developed over a pretty remarkable 7 days for the FAI, and maybe where the association goes next, if there is even an association to continue on running Irish football. And before the end of the show, we'll talk about Tottenham as well, one of the biggest nights in the history of the club, up against Manchester City, a place in the semi-finals of the Champions League at stake. John Duggan will join myself and Stephen and Kieran in studio for that. So as always, you can leave a comment on any of our social channels if there's anything you want to say to the two lads. Any questions at all, do get in touch this morning, but we'll run you through the back pages. All right, so looking first at the Irish Independent. Messi, too hot to handle. No happy return for Solskjaer as United have no answer to genius of Barca talisman. Martin Breheny has an interesting article inside. When players walk away from the championship, alarm bells should be ringing. That's about Oran McNeilis. We'll talk about that. Lee Keegan was doing the rounds yesterday. GAA should be more like rugby. Lee Keegan has lashed out at drinks bans and the attitude towards alcohol in the GAA, with the Mayo star insisting that players would be better served if they were shown more trust and leniency. The former Footballer of the Year stressed the need for a culture change within the GAA to allow for more balance between football and life away from the pitch, like many professional athletes. And Stuart Lancaster says Leinster will need Sean O'Brien at his best for their semi-final against Toulouse on Sunday. Of course, the front pages also dominated by sport and by the FAI as well. End of the old FAI. The threat of prosecution hangs over FAI directors and John Delaney amid serious allegations of financial irregularity at the organisation. The FAI engulfed in the biggest crisis in its history, with the entire board preparing to step down. So we'll get into that a little bit later on.
Yeah, so we have here is the Irish Daily Mail, and the first one is Easy Money, which again touching on Delaney and the FAI. Delaney's still on the payroll of the FAI as crisis deepens. I suppose it's just an ongoing saga with the FAI and just continuing that this has not been resolved in any way. Next one is the Barca line, which is Barca are too classy for United. Again, that just states it all. An inspired Lionel Messi ripped Manchester United apart last night as Barcelona coasted through the Champions League semi-finals. Says everything really. They were the better side all over, and Messi was just on top throughout the whole game and once again showed his class. And then the top of it here is we got Tiger roaring to Augusta again, and a major reality check for Rory, which is, I suppose, puts it. Rory, there was a lot of pressure on him going to the tournament and he felt confident going into it, but Rory coming back in such, or with Tiger coming back in such a way that he did, it's caused a shadow on him because he needs to kind of produce a big tournament win, doesn't he?
Yeah, the papers have had 2 days of celebrating Tiger. Now there's a bit more analysis of what went wrong for Rory McIlroy in his chase for the Grand Slam, so we'll chat about that as well.
Yeah, Sun Sport, it's all a mess really. We have United are left in a total messy, and the FAI are left in a total messy as well. But it's
Is that your headline or their headline?
Well, it's they forgot the I. They just said total mess, so I threw in the I. But like, speaking on the Barca and United game, like, Barca were poor at Old Trafford. Really, when you looked at the game, they still managed to win 1-0. And they're so dangerous. They're so dangerous to any team going forward. And just a small thing, fans get the pep talk. So maybe a slight chink in the armour of City that their manager is out there kind of going, let's go fans, we need you to get behind us tonight.
I saw
Champions League quarter-final.
So they've done the old put flags on every seat.
Yeah,
and he's come out and said, hasn't he? He wants them to be, can they be as good as what they are away, which is...
Yeah, because they've been getting stick because, like, you know, obviously they're going for this title, especially in the Premiership with Liverpool, who have probably the best home support and crowds at games. But, you know, I think we saw in a City game where there was nobody There were people leaving. There was people, nobody at there was loads of empty seats in a big game that they needed to win. So, yeah, it's interesting that Pep is getting out there and getting after the fans.
I think they've always tried to find that, because since they moved to the new stadium, it's such a big venue and it's so far away from the pitch. It's hard to create that kind of closer to Anfield. You're on top of it. It's easy, not easy, but obviously the fans are amazing. But it's a much easier way to trying to create an atmosphere. Whereas City is so vast and so spread out, it's difficult.
And they also still have their hardcore fan base. You'd imagine that as they're more and more successful, that the worldwide fan base will grow. But that's a slow process. So right now, like, they get a lot of stick for not filling the ground, whereas actually it's still the same Mancunians who are going along who simply can't afford to go to the amount of games that Manchester City are playing. The hurled Messi magic, they're keeping it simple. Barca proved too strong as United crash out. John Aldridge says Poole have class to finish off Porto, while Aidan Fitzmaurice has the story no more cash for FAI until board go. The FAI have been told to make complete changes to their structure before they are allowed access to state funding, but they're no closer to cutting their ties completely with their ex-CEO after it was revealed that John Delaney was on gardening leave. And the Irish Times, just on the front page of the Irish Times, FAI investigation could lead to prosecutions, criminal sanctions possible if investigation into claims finds any wrongdoing. So Aaron Shearer will be with us in around an hour from now, and we'll get into that. The sports section, Messi makes all the difference as United are left down and out.
Yeah, so I have the Daily Star here, and it's again all about Messi. New Chance is the headline, and it's Lionel Messi tortured Manchester United as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side were dumped out of the Champions League. Just going on again about how good they were, and Messi is brilliant. And the top of it here, it says Klopp seeking cool heads. So Jurgen Klopp called for cool heads in the red hot atmosphere at Estadio de Drago tonight. So Klopp just looking for his team to go out and perform. They're already going there with a 2-0 lead. They need to just have cool heads, get a goal, be confident, defend well, which I'm sure Van Dijk is going to be capable of, and then they'll see it through to the semis. And then in the corner they have a sign of the times here, which is Pochettino. The picture perfect. I think they're just giving a few things, an old picture of Pochettino from when he played in his heyday, and just trying to emphasise the game coming up.
The mirror sport goes with oh no. Obviously, look.
Oh no.
Well, whatever way you want to say it, it was oh no when I was watching it last night, because I felt for the game, because it's the biggest stage of all. He's obviously one of the best keepers in the world. I think he actually switched off mentally when he saw Messi didn't, like, because you're in goals. I just put myself in it last night when I was looking at the replay, and you see Messi coming through and you're going, this fella's going to unleash it into the top corner, so you're psyching yourself up for everything, and next thing he kind of dribbles one along the ground. Now there was pace in it and it's cutting across the surface, but I think he just started kind of switching off in it when he fell down in it, which was tough. I felt for him last night, because on the biggest stage you just don't want to see mistakes like that, really. It was
making a lot of mistakes in the biggest stage.
He is, yeah.
It's back to the World Cup last summer.
He's been so good for United and so consistently. So then when he happens on a big occasion, it's hard for him to take. When Man U put so much pressure on him as well.
If you make a mistake, it's like even if I made a mistake at full forward, nobody really noticed, because nothing really happened that came along. But if the full back made a mistake, or the goalie makes a mistake, or if the left back makes a mistake and the right winger goes in and slats one, you have very little room. The keeper gets, even the Liverpool keeper last year in the Champions League final, like, it's that one mistake you're just hoping hoping against, and then at the bottom of it's another day, another FAI miss. So more drama and that. And there's also the one I saw last night, which is on the Paul Scholes bet probe Shotclock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the bets are from 2015. I don't think he was 2016. I don't think he was he playing? I don't think he was.
I think it was due to the fact that he was involved.
Yeah, he was still involved with Salford. So as an owner of the club, technically, if you're involved in football at any level, you're not allowed. So he's obviously going to have some questions to answer about that. The front page of The Guardian is on their knees, magical Messi and De Gea's blunder leaves United humbled. Conor Murray interview as well in The Guardian with Donald McRae. It would be incredible on how Munster can save their season this Saturday away at Saracens. And De Ligt for Ajax, teenage captain, leads Dutch side to last four as Ronaldo and Juventus crash out. We will marvel at what Ajax have been doing in a little while. And The Telegraph, Barca masterclass, the pictures of Lionel Messi and Philippe Coutinho. Messi's brilliance somewhat overshadowing everything else good that Barcelona did. It was another wonder goal from Philippe Coutinho. It's had a bit of a struggle at Barcelona, but tends to turn it on the biggest games.
Yeah, you see a celebration as well, his fingers in his ears. So yeah, he's obviously been getting a bit of stick there. He's I said, at Liverpool, he was fantastic, wasn't he? He was so good for them. He was their talisman, and he led to everything. So for him to be going over there and not perform as high as what he probably liked to be is disappointing. But when you go to a team like that and you've got someone like Messi in the squad, you're always going to be overshadowed.
Always, and you've got Suarez up there as well. It's hard to beat, especially because he was such a magical player with Liverpool because he was the most kind of skillful guy, and then he goes over here and everybody is has that. Most fellas have that skill level, but he is a special player, and good to see him get on the score sheet last night.
The Times Ireland, Armagh defy training ban rule, and Horan keeping Mayo old dogs fresh. Also, you see up there FAI board to step down as crisis deepens. I imagine Armagh won't be the only ones to defy the training ground rule.
Yeah, I'd say most counties are probably doing the Tuesday training session, I would say.
Most such as which, Kieran? What do you know?
I would presume most would train Tuesday with Kerry. I'm going back to when I was playing, which is
last year,
donkeys years ago. I'm pretty sure they kind of get together on a Tuesday and get that hard session, and then let the boys back into the clubs for the Thursday.
And that's not allowed at all under the rules.
Under the rules, yeah. But sure, under the rules, there's no football going on in December either, apparently, and there's always pre-season going on. And
there was no punishment for Kerry for that. As you say, every county was doing it.
Yeah, I presume every county is doing it, yeah. I presume so. I'm just trying to think, did we train the Tuesday?
I think we need a thorough investigation and maybe some bans for the summer out of this.
Let's get the Oireachtas in again.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, you've admitted to it. You've admitted to it now.
Donaghy for the summer.
There'll be no comeback, that's for sure.
Yeah, I better go back and check that. I always thought we trained on the Tuesday and then went back to the clubs on the Thursday. That could be... No, I'm pretty sure that's the case.
And finally, the Irish News. Down's Quaylon Mooney says Down are underdogs for Ulster clash. This is already the build-up beginning to the championship in Ulster. Down are taking on Armagh in the first round, so they're going to be underdogs to Armagh. There's a bit of honesty in that, isn't there?
There is, yeah. They'll be underdogs against Armagh, but that's a game that's I wouldn't be putting my money either way, because it'll be two teams that'll be out of their mind for the first round of the championship. It'll be on TV. It's a big game. Down are traditionally very good on big days, and Armagh, even though they're building very well under Kieran McGeeney, they aren't bulletproof to Down, giving them a shock in the day and beating them. So I expect that to be a tight one.
Did you ever play a game where you weren't able to talk up the opponents? Like if you were still playing this
Kerry,
year,
we can always talk up the opponents.
Cork are ticking along, proud county. That's what we'll be hearing from Kerry this year.
Yeah, do you know why that is? Because if you're going into a Munster final with Cork and it's on below in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, and if you get beaten, which we have a lot of times below, granted they were a better team back then, but geez, you get a lot of stick in Kerry after losing to Cork in the game. So we're always saying that I'd say not to be cute Kerry hoorism and kind of taking the pressure off ourselves and building up Cork, but it's just building up Cork to maybe keep ourselves and our own squad members on our toes, that hey, if we lose this, we're going to get it in the neck.
All right, so the main stories in the papers today, obviously, as we've seen front and back, is what's happening in the FAI, and it's been a pretty remarkable month at this stage since these revelations of the €100,000 bridging loan came out. But the last 24 hours, I think, is just incredible what we've been hearing from the FAI. We've seen over the last 24 hours that their auditors, Deloitte, have reported the company for failing to keep proper accounting records, which is a potential criminal threat. Criminal offence. We have seen the entire FAI board say that they are going to resign probably in July, unless an EGM is called before then, and that is up to the council members, people at grassroots level in Irish football, if they want to put the pressure on to have a EGM before then. The way Shane Ross and Sport Ireland were talking yesterday, maybe they feel that they should wait until July so that they have as many of these reports completed, and that they're going into an EGM with a good sense of where everybody is, because I think if some of these board members rightly will feel that they can go for re-election. It's not going to be an absolute clean sweep, it seems, of the FAI, unless there is no FAI, which is something that Niall Quinn is in today's paper, suggesting that, much like the Olympic Council, that there is a clean sweep, that the FAI is such a tarnished brand now that we look at just reinventing the whole thing, and you come back with Football Ireland or Soccer Ireland or whatever a new name is, but that it's a new fresh brand that really does see a new start for Irish football. Yeah, where do you stand on it, Stephen?
I suppose with the rebranding, it kind of makes sense when you see what happened with the Olympic Council. It did just kind of change everything, and now it's like seems to be rosy, and for sponsorship, that will make a difference, I think, because going forward, you don't want to be associated with something that's tarnished. You want to be with something that's new and fresh and has got a good way about it. So that could be the way forward. But this is dragged on. I think everybody knew from the moment that there was tried to get a high court injunction against 100,000 that was open up a can of worms, because you don't stop that if that's all it was and there was obviously something else was going to happen. So as soon as that happened, you knew that there was going to be just going to dig a hole that's going to get further and further, and that's what's been, it's been so disappointing. Like, being involved with Ireland since I was 15 and with the FAI, and they've been I suppose the club I've been with, if you use it as a club term, it's been the club with the longest time, so I'd know more people in there, and it's just so disappointing to see association that's done so well for me over the years and that I've been a part of football since, that it's just gone down a hole now, and at the moment it looks like it's going to have to clear everything out for it and start again, which is the way to go forward. But it's just disappointing that they've got themselves into this position.
And are you shocked by what's been going on at the FAI over the last, what's been revealed about what's been going on at the FAI?
Yeah, I'm shocked. Some of the stuff has really shocked me. Like I said, the level, like the 24 accounts, and the fact that at some point they said they almost had, like, if John Delaney had to give them 100,000, that they had no money. That is just beyond, this supposedly was a profit-making organisation. Like, then they have, huge facilities in the Aviva Stadium, and the revenue would have been coming in, the grants they would have got. So you're so surprised that they're in a position where they literally couldn't pay people. So to get themselves into that state, what was going on behind the situations for that to happen? You just think it has to be catastrophic errors that must have been made, or like ledgering or accounting. But I think the issue is that with John Delaney is that the fact that he had so much power and it was one man at the top, and that, considering he is the CEO, but he's not like Elon Musk. It's not his company. He hasn't invented the FAI. He's not, you know what I mean? It's not like he's made this from the ground up. He's been brought in there to run the company, and I think that's the disappointing part, that he was able to gather so much power and have so much say over everything, and it was down to one man, and it wasn't an elector or it wasn't a committee type thing, even though it was supposed to be. It was all down on John. And
were you aware of that when you were playing? Were you aware that if you wanted something done, it went through the CEO?
Yeah, well, to be honest, for most things for us, if something was untoward or we needed something changed, it was generally the captain would go and it would be straight to John, and John would be the one that would fix it. So you knew he was the man to go to organise everything, or if the travel wasn't right, if where we were staying wasn't correct, or if something like that had to be changed, it would be more, we'd have a discussion, the captain would go, and you'd almost bypass it. It'd be the coaching staff first, but then it'd probably be bypass the coaching staff straight to Delaney, and he'd be the one that would fix it.
And was there ever any sense over the last decade that there were money issues? Like, when you talk about accommodation, even we have Paul O'Hare saying that when you talk about 24 accounts, they've no money in any of those accounts, so they need this €100,000, that they're getting to the stage of, like, how can they afford to pay for these away trips? That it's something catastrophic was potentially coming down the line.
I think what would have been was, because we would have been the face of the company type thing, I suppose, and we were the forefront of it, I think everything would have been put to a side for us to make sure that we had done properly. So when it comes to travel and where we stayed and flights and stuff and all, that would have affected everything else below would have been affected more. Whereas I reckon, because we were the face of it and what people see, that was the thing that was prioritised. Prioritise that first, get that done, and then everything else can take it. So I'm sure those people that would have maybe lost their jobs, or
there was pay cuts.
Exactly, and so that stuff would have affected. But I think because you're the top of the pyramid, I suppose we were the ones that were least affected in that sense.
And as players, would you ever talk about the FAI, about, I guess you're on your flights to matches with the board?
Not really. Like, you'd have conversations with them and chit chat, but because it's not your club, it doesn't affect your day to day. You come in and you're meeting up with a group of lads you haven't been with for a long time, so you're just with the boys and you have a bit of crack, and it's very different. So you don't, in club football, you'd be a bit more intrigued or to know what's going on with the board sense, or the managing director, or if you're meeting the chief exec or something like that. But in the international football, it'd be more just coming in to meet with the guys you haven't seen for a month, and then you're getting on well together, and you go off for a game, and it's literally you're 2 weeks together and you're away. So you'd be less inclined to be informed about it. Listen, it's still our association, and most of us have been involved in it for a long time. So it's extremely disappointing, and it's a sad day in Irish football for it to get to this. But like I said, it wouldn't have affected us as much because of where we were.
Do you see a future role in sports administration?
I'm not too sure about that. Like, I think Noel Quinn seems to have it nailed down probably for the CEO. Well,
yeah, he'll be spotting the board.
Yeah, maybe spotting the board. Yeah. Give it up and say.
I do think we need to look at these avenues that I said about a week ago we had a conversation on this, and I thought it was sort of pie in the sky stuff still to think that Niall Quinn, Brian Kerr would be back involved in the FAI, that there was so much water in the bridge. But so much has been revealed since, like the fact that we're sitting here, that John Delaney is right now stepped aside as even executive vice president, that all the board are going to step away, that people are talking of a totally new organisation to run football in Ireland. Anything is possible, and you want people in the know. You want former players involved, and like Shane Ross said yesterday, you want players representatives of the league. I think some people might be surprised to know that there is a representative of the League of Ireland on the board. There's probably questions as to what they were actually achieving, but I was thinking a players representative doesn't necessarily need to be from the PFAI. It may well end up being somebody like Stephen McGuinness or Gary Rogers, but it could be John Walters, who's been very involved in the PFA over in England. They need to cast far and wide as to who can come in.
Yeah, if they're going to go all new, they should be definitely looking to get people that are in the game, that have seen what's been done right, how to do things right, how to make sure that things don't happen, I suppose, the way they have over the last number of years. And plus, the light is on it now, so whoever's in there, they'll be in there with a real goal, just to get kind of, as you said, the brand back on the right road, and to get people behind it, and to get people that have played the game or that have been involved in the game to see how they can affect what way the game is going in Ireland. But I would absolutely be looking at guys like Niall Quinn and Brian Kerr and these guys, get them in, I
think people that don't have an agenda, I suppose, they're generally their best interest is to get Irish football back up to where we all want it to be and where we hope it to be. And like I said, people that have had involvement in whether Premiership football or any high level of football, where they can see the workings and how it's been done properly and the organisation that it takes and the people that they need to have in place and the structure. That's what needs to be done. So a lot of players would have been involved in that, like I said, and you'd know more about it from your club, so you'd have to try and implement that into the FA.
Yeah, and there's a few probably them board members too that I'd probably feel for, because when you're a board member, you're a board member, but you're in, and if the boss is a strong kind of leader and he's doing his things his way, kind of how much control does one guy in the board? Does he have the power to step up? We all know there's, like, I worked in Ulster Bank before. I wasn't going to go into the board of Ulster Bank and say, I want this thing done this way. You just knew there was kind of chains of command to go on. So it is a tricky one. It is a tricky one for some of those guys that that may have done everything right, knew that there was stuff going on, but they couldn't have the power to change it by themselves. And you'd hate to see them lose their job over it as well. So there could be a few guys on that board that could actually, as you said earlier on, go for re-election or whatever.
They were the minority. They're sticking their neck out, and they could lose the job.
They could, absolutely.
That's going to affect their family.
Yeah, they just stay quiet and do their bit for their role or whatever their role is. Like, everybody has different roles on a board,
Yeah, the one thing you'd say is that the FAI board, it seems, are still giving as little information as possible to Sport Ireland, which was revealed yesterday that the FAI and Sport Ireland met on Monday. The FAI never mentioned that Deloitte were making this report, that they weren't keeping proper accounts. They never mentioned that they were all going to step aside. They waited till they met the sports minister, Shane Ross. So
haven't dealt with it well, really, have they?
No, it's been a disaster the way this has played out. But maybe in the long run,
for
it's
a reason,
very good.
For a reason,
exactly.
They're probably hiding stuff.
Exactly, the lack of transparency. I think that's probably been the most damning for them, hasn't it? The fact that they haven't been upfront and open. They haven't been able to, but the fact that they haven't come forward, like. They've been caught or whatever's happened is going now be open about it and at least go out with some dignity.
Yeah.
At the moment that's not happening. They just seem to be focused on, okay, let's just protect ourselves as much as we possibly can. How do we get through this? Like, bury ourselves in and get out the other side, and that's not going to happen. Like, the more people are getting involved, the more people are investigating, it's just going to get worse.
So Aaron Shearer will be with us around 9 o'clock and will talk us through the technicalities of what's happened over the last 24 hours. Lee Egan was doing the rounds yesterday. He was on one of the nice corporate gigs and was talking about drinks bans. Probably the most interesting comments, the ones that are on all the back pages. I mentioned them there. So he says, you sit in the pub even having a my waddy and the heads are staring over to you. Why is he in here? If you can't have a normal life like that, what's the point of it? I think it's just a culture within GEA. I always look to professional sports, and particularly rugby. They have their few beers after their game and they train 2 days later and perform at the highest level the week after. That's the way the GEA should look at it as well. It's part and parcel of life. If you can't enjoy life with a bit of success, or even if you lose, have a few beers with your mates, that's part of sport. There has to be a balance. If you're always locked into GEA, what is there out there for yourself? Does that sound pretty familiar?
Yeah, I think we mentioned it on Shotclock about 3 weeks ago that it is a culture thing, and it is slightly changing. As in the kind of, we'll go off to drink for 3 months so we can win this championship or win this. I think that's kind of gone. because the amount of effort GA players are putting into training every day, whether it's a gym or a field session or whatever, or a recovery day where you have to go stretch and foam roll and get into the pool or go to the beach or whatever. So it's every day for a GA player. So if they can't, go for a meal and have a glass of wine, or or have their few beers after a game, I agree with Lee on all those points, because for me, when I was getting to the end of my career, I started kind of enjoying the journey of the career, as in enjoying all the small things. And I think them few pints with your teammates after any game should be something that you kind of enjoy and go together with, and everybody be on the same boat. And the culture is gone. Like, these young guys aren't like we were when we came in 2006. I was coming in learning off Darragh O'Shea and the boys, and if you won a Munster final, they mightn't see you till Wednesday. You were just getting in and out of bars. Whereas now, these young players and these young athletes that are playing GA at the highest level, these guys go out and have their, even all the young guys in the Kerry team. Like, I remember looking over last year with Darren O'Sullivan, kind of looking at him like, and it's 2:00 in the morning and all these young guys are kind of sober and they're talking away and they're nice and calm, and I was kind of going, Jesus, when we were 18, 19 or 20 or 23 or whatever we were when we broke in, if we were getting a few pints after a game, we'd be probably on the floor at this stage, because we saw it so rarely that it was kind of like a case of it was a real culture of go on the beer for 3 days, then go off it for 2 months, on the beer for 3 days, off it for 2 months. It's not healthy. I think the balance, certainly the rugby players, and I would see the soccer players too. Was it Wes Hoolan when he got that goal in the European Championships? They were having their bottle Heineken afterwards in the dressing room. Yeah. The Aussie rules guys finish a game, they come into the dressing room, there's 25 boxes of pizzas there, there's a few crates of beer, and they sit there and relax as a team and have a bit of time together to talk about what went well or talk about what they need to improve on for next week. But they're getting their bit of carbs in with the food and they're having their few beers. They're not playing again until next week. It's not going to...
Almost that moment that you often talk about after winning an All-Ireland final, where you lock the door of the dressing room and it's just the 30, 40 players, backroom staff together as one.
Yeah. That's the precious time.
You're not out till 4 a.m. You're actually the benefits far outweigh whatever negatives there is of having 100%. 2 bottles of beer.
And we definitely don't get enough of that quality time. Even when we're out, we haven't been out in 6 weeks, so now we're out. We're kind of at the bar. You're just drinking. You're just
make the most of it.
Make the most of it, absolutely. And that's the wrong way to look at it. It should be about nice and relaxed. Go for a nice few quiet pints with your teammates. But it isn't. It's right. It's 10 o'clock. We're after getting back. I'm going straight on to Jameson, because sure, I'm going to be drinking till 2 o'clock in the morning. I won't get on it if I keep on pints. So it's a real like playing every week. If you win in a Saturday a big game with sport, what were you doing afterwards?
When I first came into the squad with Tottenham when I was like 18, 19, there was a drinking culture in it, and it was more so as soon as the game finished, with me being the youngest player, I was sent to the, whether it was a away game, to the players' lounge to come back onto the coach with a load of beers, and the senior players would be drinking, like Les Faird and Teddy Shergam, and I'll be down the back coach, Jamie Redknapp, having a few beers on the coach on the way back to the training ground. And that's the way it was. And that's just obviously been completely changed since I was never much of a big drinker, and that was just my preference, never got into it. But the culture was there, but then as it's gone on, that's just completely gone out of it. And it's only the old school managers that you see that would happen. Like the only real time when with Steve Bruce, we had an occasion we got promoted, and we came in training the next morning, and the fitness coach came in with a Lucozade box, and he wheeled in, and Steve closed the change room doors, like you said, and he's like, okay lads, and we all said, he's like, right, ready for training, and he opened up and it was just full of beers.
Lovely.
And we just been promoted, and I think the same day the Sky cameras were up on Sunderland, they'd been promoted as well, and they were out running around the pitch, and Roy Keane was the manager, and Bruce was like, look at these guys, and we were all sitting in the chair. So it was a bit of banter, and I always remember it just as being a really good time for it. And it wasn't like the lads were in the change room, it was just wanted us all together as a team to celebrate what our achievement was.
It was an experience, like you remember it clearly now.
So clearly,
yeah, you remember that because you're in with your teammates and it's nice and calm, but you don't remember the nights out afterwards where it's manic, exactly, you know what I mean? So it's finding little times, I think, for GA squads to relax on the whole thing. And like a lot of these guys now don't even drink. Yeah. So if you don't drink, great. Like it's better again if you don't drink, if you can go out and enjoy yourself without it. But if you are to have a few drinks, I think having it nice in moderation with your teammates in a relaxed setting, take them away to a hotel after a game, let them have their 6 or 7 beers together, and then say, okay lads, look, you can go into town, whatever. But I think if I had a team, it'd be about getting the boys together and making sure they are together so they can get talking to each other, have the few pints, iron out things if things need to be ironed out, or just have banter, and then go into the mania of a Castle Bar or a Killarney or wherever it is after your big game. But I think just going straight into town, I just think fellas branch off and fellas are being pulled and dragged everywhere.
You want to keep the team together as much as you can, because it's that close to unit. And it's the times with your team that you'll remember. I said, because I wasn't much of a drinker, but it was those times when we were all together at the teams. They're the times you remember the most. Like, so that was the.
Well, it keeps it going as well. Then for the next week, 2 weeks of training, the things you were chatting about after a few drinks that night, the bit of crack you had.
Absolutely, like that. If you win a Munster final or a Connacht final, and you come into the pitch on a summer's day on a Tuesday, and fellas had been out. In them days, fellas were out the Saturday, or they were out the Sunday after the game. They were out the Monday, and Tuesday you were back into work and you were back out to training, and we'd all be sitting out there in the middle of the field, like, you know, and it'd always be seen as a kind of it wasn't going to be ever a real hard session the Tuesday after a Munster final because bodies are sore or whatever. So fellas would be just sitting down, and all the crack would be, anything anybody would be talking about would be the crack Sunday and Monday. Where do we go on Monday for the crack? And so it'd be real, you know, there'd be just banter there, but fellas are talking, fellas are laughing, there's a good relaxed vibe. You get your bit of a session done, you get into your ice baths afterwards, and then Thursday you come back ready to go. But yeah, it's important, and I agree with Lee that it is. If you can't sit there and have a wine or a glass of wine or a pint and someone's looking over at you, kind of questioning you, judging you, you know, that's where it goes too far. As you like, we're not being paid, so why are you judging me? And you know, I'm out here doing this because I want to represent my county, I want to represent my club, my family. But if I'm going to have a pint, you know, I need to be left have a pint without you staring at me, if you don't mind. No, I'd never go down that road talking to anybody. To be honest, I was always good enough to find a dark corner where nobody could see me.
Well, I was going to ask, and we'll save it for another day, I think, where you were back in, was it 2009, when Gooch and Tomás O'Shea were busted?
Yeah, I was out in the training ground, dedicated to the core.
I can only imagine. Go on, where were you?
No, I was training. There was one or two fellas went at that time, and there was one or two fellas that got away with it as well. But Tomás and Gooch were brave enough to put up their hand and say where they were. But again, that's, you know, that was very tough on them at the time. But maybe if we were where we are now, and that game against Sligo where we were poor, played bad, literally a huge amount of pressure on us to win that game. Diarmuid Murphy makes the big save. We go on and win it. Maybe that was a time where, you know, a manager would look at it and go, these fellas need a bit of chill out time. Yeah, we're playing again next week, but let's go for a meal. Let's give them out. Let's throw a few bottles of wine up on the table. Let fellas have a few drinks. Everyone back to the hotel together, because that's the danger, and that's where the trust, and that's where people struggle, is because fellas will take the piss, literally. They'll go at it. Everybody home at 11 o'clock.
Red flag to a bull, isn't it? Some lads just can't take off, and they can't handle it.
And I think that's the you know, if it's really strict and you can't do it ever, and then you get the green light, all bets are off. It's carnage.
You think that obviously in football it's changed dramatically, but the physicalities of the game, the speed of the game is all, like, since I started, has changed so much. I'm sure you noticed it now as well. So and everybody's athletes, they've all improved. Like everything has come on. Like
looking after yourself and all the stuff away from it. I don't think the few points are going to.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
All right, that is it for this morning's papers. So we've been for you all this week on OTBAM. It's all with thanks to Turkish Airlines, proud sponsors of Cricket Ireland. Ireland is facing the busiest summer of cricket we've ever known, hosting some of the biggest teams in the world, such as England, West Indies and Bangladesh. On May 5th, the Ireland men's team will face England in Malahide, with a tri-series against Bangladesh and West Indies to follow. Here at OTBAM, we're giving you the chance to fly anywhere in the world with Turkish Airlines. It's a brilliant prize, and to enter, just head to offtheball.com or the link that we've just posted in our live stream for OTBAM and fill in the entry form. So we're talking football next on OTBAM. Here is what Kenny Cunningham made of Barcelona's victory against Manchester United.
Barcelona have been so impressive that you'd say, well, this certainly cements their status as tournament favourites, or
no,
so?
Well, yeah, I suppose.
Defensively, they looked very open, especially in the first 15 minutes. Really open.
But that's always been the case. Even when this Barcelona team were at their very best, Joe, you always felt as if you could get the ball, if you could get at those Barcelona defensive line, particularly two centre-halves, PK, as good as he is, but a lack of mobility, you can hurt them. But of course, that's easier said than done. You know, in terms of getting the ball off this Barcelona team for sustained periods of the game, just most teams can't do it. But I think the Barcelona performance tonight just kind of reinforces what we already know. Take the little man out of the team and you think, yeah, very, very good team, but not exceptional, not head and shoulders above anything else. But drop the little magician into the team, and that's the reason why they're probably most people's slight favourites for this competition. And of course, he's made a difference this evening.
Andy Mitten is on the line from Barcelona. Morning, Andy.
It's not a good morning, but good morning.
So that was Kenny Cunningham post-match. Kenny was in here yesterday morning doing some really good pre-match analysis of where Manchester United could get at Barcelona. And a lot of what he spoke about happened in the opening 5-6 minutes of that game, the pace of Rashford. But the one thing he mentioned, and we talked about at the end, was Lionel Messi. That you just cannot define what he can do in any game. And that's sort of how it turned out. The first 5-6 minutes, if Marcus Rashford takes that chance, it's a very, very different game.
Yeah, it reminded me of the Champions League final in Rome in 2009. United started very well. They had chances. They didn't take the chance. Then Barca got the goal in 10 minutes in Rome, 14 minutes in Camp Nou last night. I was really impressed at how Manchester United started. Well, they had a shot on goal for a start, which hadn't happened at Old Trafford. And then once they went behind, as in Rome, it killed Manchester United. Ashley Young made a couple of mistakes. Lionel Messi does this not just on one-off games. He does it consistently. I watch him 25 times a season live, and he does it most weeks. He's doing it 8 out of 10 times, and he was the best player last night. He's in a great run of form. Got a very good team behind him. Barcelona fans aren't completely sold on Ernesto Valverde's pragmatism because they're comparing him to Pep Guardiola's team, which won those 6 trophies. But they're in the semi-finals for the first time since 2015. They outclassed Manchester United home and away. It wasn't vintage Barca, not in the second half at Old Trafford, and they were open. But the best teams tend to be open. But I don't think Barca were under any real threat last night. I watched them go through the gears. They do it all the time. They soak in what teams throw at them. I saw Sevilla and Lyon come at them earlier this year. They soak it up, and by the 25th minute, they're so dominant that nobody can live with them. So it's disappointing for United. I sort of went into that ground thinking there's a 20% chance of a repeat of Turin or Paris, but there's an 80% chance of that not happening because they're way off the level of the best teams in the world, and Manchester United shouldn't be. They're one of the biggest 3 clubs in the world, and it's still a club in transition 6 years after Sir Alex Ferguson left, and in those 6 years he've not even managed a serious Premier League title challenge.
Transition, but no great change at the back since Alex Ferguson left. And the one statistic that was doing the rounds last night was that of the back 5, 4 of them had played in the defeat against Basel 8 years ago for Manchester United. And in your writing over the past 12 hours or so, you've been pretty critical of Ashley Young in particular, and just, I guess, how out of his depth he looked last night.
I think he's a good player. I think he's a good pro. He's had a very good career. But when your captain is playing out of position as a fullback against the best team in the world, he's going to get exposed. And he was exposed. And he's not having a good run. I think history will remember him well as a decent Manchester United player. But the golfing class was obvious. I don't like singling players out at all. But he's playing for Man United, and with that comes pressure, with it comes expectations, with it comes great remuneration. And the fullback positions have been a problem for Manchester United for some years now. It's to Young's credit that he has the versatility to fill in several positions, but he isn't playing well, and I can't pretend otherwise. And he's 33 years old, and he's not the future of Manchester United.
What is the future of Manchester United? A defeat like that last night where they're pretty much outclassed. All right, a lot of it is to do with the genius of Lionel Messi. But at boardroom level, have the decisions already been made as to how much Manchester United will spend this summer, the players they're targeting? Or does a defeat like that mean that they go back home to Manchester today, they all sit down in a room and go, this is a bigger job than we thought?
this is a problem for Manchester United. It's this lack of strategy. It's the fact that they're going to appoint a sporting director but haven't done. So when you saw these stories about Barca wanting Marcus Rashford this week, I wrote that story. I know my sources on that story. That story is absolutely correct. And they've been watching him for 2.5, 3 years. Not just one sporting director. They've got 3 sporting directors. They know they're almost certainly not going to get Marcus Rashford. Manchester United have got no intention of selling Marcus Rashford and don't need to. So what Barca then have is a plan B, C, D, E, F. What do Manchester United have? You can judge the players that they've brought in, and it seems to be haphazard. Had Bastian Schweinsteiger really been scouted? Radamel Falcao? Was that someone who was brought in to fit into a system, or was that someone brought on a whim after a phone call? And that worries Manchester United fans, that they're spending a lot of money, they're not spending it well. On that pitch last night were the teams with the first and second highest wage bill in world football. Barca are achieving, Manchester United are consistently underachieving. There's been some great moments. Solskjaer was the right man to get the job after those 15 wins in his first 19 games. Some very, very good players there. But the consistency of them isn't close to the best teams. I watch Barca on a very frequent basis and can't help but compare to Manchester United. Paul Pogba's a top player, but he'll have 2 good games and a dreadful game. Roy Keane was doing it 8 times out of 10, and so were 7 of his teammates. Now, we can't even compare this team to the former United team. Football is all about cycles, and United are in a low cycle at the moment. It's not a vintage team. No one pretends that it is. There's more rebuilding to be done, but it seems like Groundhog Day. I've done stuff on for yourselves for a long, long time, and we could have been having this conversation in any of the last 6 years. There's not really any light at the end of the tunnel, and every time we think there's another setback. I'd love Ole Gunnar to get it right. I'd love him to recruit as well as he can in the summer. Do I have absolute conviction that Manchester United will be challenging for the Premier League in a year's time? I don't, sadly.
And it doesn't seem like a quick fix the way you're talking, because we go through the defence, a massive overhaul seems to be required there, and also in all likelihood a massive overhaul in midfield. Ander Herrera expected to go to Paris Saint-Germain. Emmanuel Matic's legs look as though they've sort of passed that point of no return over the past 3 to 4 months, and there is that Pogba question. Like, when you talk about what's going on at boardroom level, do you think Manchester United know for certain right now whether or not Paul Pogba will be at the club at the start of next season?
They want him to be at the club. He's got a contract to stay at the club. They've got absolutely no intention of selling him, nor any financial pressure. It'd basically take a player to go out on strike, which I think it'd be extremely foolish for him to do. I think he'll be reassured that the team will be built around him. He'll probably become captain, which wasn't going to happen under Jose Mourinho. But again, it's Groundhog Day with Paul Pogba. We're going to have a summer of Real Madrid being linked to him. He'd have to push the move to get the move. And I don't think it's going to happen. United need to keep the best players, and Paul Pogba is among the best players. He should be the absolute best player. He's not a knockout hero with fans. They've got doubts about him, about his conduct. And this is a team that's a decent team. We mentioned the defence. Phil Jones, Chris Smalling, they're very good defenders. Are they Bonucci, Chiellini class? All right, maybe not the best example after Juventus have been knocked out of Europe, but they're not the best in the world. Vidic, Rio Ferdinand, I spoke to him last night in the stadium. They were the best in the world. This is Manchester United. They should be buying the best players in the world. It's not always going to be possible, but as we saw last night, those technical deficiencies, they get exposed when you play teams who are among the best in the world. You can't pretend that Manchester United are on the same level as Manchester City or Liverpool at the moment. Liverpool have recruited exceptionally well. They were knocked for buying Van Dijk for 75 million. Well, they got it right. They absolutely got it right. And he's superior to any Manchester United defender. Good money has been spent on defenders for Manchester United, and yet the defence remains a problem. And that will be an area that is one that Ole Gunnar was satisfied had improved a lot, and it had done. But these last 7 games, where United have lost 5 of them, it's shown that it's a problem area.
Looking at Barcelona then heading towards the semi-finals, and they'll play either Liverpool or Porto in the semi-finals. The weakness that was there in that opening 14 minutes, where the intensity that Manchester United played seemed to really unsettle their midfield, and that was noticeable as well during the group stage, that maybe they're not as able to control a match, to just have that absolute dominance as they were a decade ago. And I guess how could they when you don't have Xavi and Iniesta in the midfield? Do you think if Liverpool do progress tonight that they can cause Barcelona trouble in the semi-final?
I think they can. I know hardcore Barca supporters who think that Liverpool are a better team than them. But I'm also wary of people who only watch Barcelona now and again. I watch them most weeks. They are exceptionally good. They didn't always show it against Manchester United, but they get the job done. Sevilla won away in the first leg of the Copa del Rey. Barca destroyed them at home. Leon held Barca in the first leg of the last 16. Barca destroyed them at home, put 5 past them. Real Madrid came to Camp Nou in October. Barca beat them by 5-1. They've not got injuries. The defence is playing well. Messi's playing well. Luis Suarez, he's not scoring in Europe. He's playing exceptionally well. I would still say that with Messi, Barca are the favourites. And yet, I wouldn't be stunned if they had this little wobble. But that can happen to any teams. It's knockout football. Barca have won La Liga by a distance, but they really need to win the European Cup if this manager is going to be loved. And he's a good manager and he's a good person. And for them to win it in Madrid, the home of their greatest rivals, would be the biggest bonus. But football's full of these symmetries of what could happen and what couldn't happen. I think there's a respect for Liverpool now that hasn't been there for 20-odd years, that Liverpool are a very, very good team and want to be feared. Unfortunately, Manchester United are not.
Andy, good stuff as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Andy Mitten there, editor of United We Stand. Your thoughts then on United and where they are and just how far off they are. Never mind Europe's elite, how far they are off England's elite, and well, maybe they're one and the same at this stage.
I think it's very difficult because obviously since the void that Fergie has left, the whole talk now is trying to bring in a sporting director, someone that's going to be in unison and stay there for a long time to pick the team, or not pick the team, but attract players and pick a certain squad that's going to play a certain way. But then on top of that, you have to have a manager that's strong enough to mentally to come in and manage Man United, because the expectation is there. So if you have a manager that wants to do his own way and a sporting director, that could be a clash if they're not in the same way. But Mourinho was there, he's the person that wants to do his own thing, but the board were kind of pulling things a different way. So it's a very difficult situation, because the sporting director makes sense because you want some unity, you want someone there that's going to be there for the long haul and be able to build a team that play the Man U way and fit players in the right positions. Like at the moment, they seem to buy players that just are haphazardly bought. Like it's not like we need a fullback to make this position. It's just right. Let's buy him. He's the most expensive player. Let's buy him. They don't fit into a system that Man U. Is
now not the time that you get that sporting director, because they have a manager who, I don't want to do down Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but he's happy to have the job. Whereas Jose Mourinho, Louis van Gaal, the biggest names in world football are so self-confident that they almost feel they're bigger than the club, whereas Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is very much in awe of the club still.
You have to do it now. It has to be now. It has to be done, because this is, like I said, because he's not a yes man, but like you can see that the way he's bringing Fergie back, he has so much respect for the club, and
you can probably see a lot. You get the sense from Solskjaer actually he wants Manchester United to be successful after he leaves,
regardless of whether he's there or not. So he just wants to be there for as long as he can, but he wants the club to get back to the way it was before, and that's with him or someone else. You can see him almost saying that, okay, if it's not with me, that's fine. So yeah, a sporting director is literally, that's almost the most important recruitment thing they need to do is get someone in that position, and then they can, but it's the right person, because like I said, you don't want to get someone that's going to come in that has a completely different philosophy to what they want or how they want to play. You need someone that is going to gather a team together that is going to play the right way. But defensively, they've, like I said, you mentioned the 4 players that played, or the 5 players that played against Basel 8 years ago, like that. Most of those players have been offered new contracts. Like a lot of those players signed 3 or 4 year deals this season. So the fact that they were giving those out, and I don't think they were good enough to be at Man United for the length of time they've been there. So that's an issue now as well.
Paul Pogba as captain next season?
It's just, like I said, it's someone that doesn't perform every week. You want your captain to be the person that's every week, like last night, David De Gea had the mistake, but I would say he's probably been the most consistent performer. He's made a few issues, made a few mistakes, but I would have thought that if you're going to keep De Gea, you're going to keep someone. But Pogba's personality and the way he wants to keep himself, giving him the armband might satisfy his, his personality, or the way he kind of feels he needs to be the highest.
It might force him to up his game every week and play every game like it's his last, because there is there's no doubt he's extremely talented, and there's no doubt he's flashes of magic, and when he wants to work he can get around the pitch. And Solskjaer's first few games, that was the biggest thing to me watching United from Mourinho to Solskjaer, was all of a sudden this Pogba fella was flying around, getting tackles in, intercepting passes, playing guys through. But the back four is where it's at. I think they've got enough quality around the pitch, but if you've got Ashley Young and Phil Jones and even Smalling to a degree as your back four going into the new camp, it's just not at the races. And when you think back, Liverpool were criticised for paying the amount they did for Van Dijk at the time, but
it's the bargain of the century.
Chicken
75 million quid. All right, as you all know, over the past few months we have teamed up with Leia Healthcare, the official health and wellbeing partner to Leinster Rugby, to bring you Wellbeing Wednesday. Each week, one lucky winner will win a Blue Book voucher for €250 for their very own wellbeing retreat. All 9 winners will then go into a draw, which will happen at the end of April, and one lucky winner will receive a wellbeing hamper and a Leinster season ticket for the 2019-2020 season. To enter this week's competition, simply answer this question: who captained Leinster to their 2018 Champions Cup win? Send us your answer to any of our OTB social channels and make sure to use the hashtag It's Good to Live. Now, Stephen, you're going to pop out and get yourself a coffee.
I am.
Milk, no sugar for myself and Kieran. We got Shotclock coming next here on OTBAM. First up, here is Limerick star Aaron Gillan on his clubmate, Keane Lynch.
Even today, I don't get how anyone can compare someone to Keane Lynch. In my opinion, he's just streaks ahead of anybody that plays. I've been playing with him since under 6s, we're the two only same age people in Partistrell the whole way up along, and this isn't a lie. I've never seen the man play a bad game. So, if that's not Mr. Consistency, I don't know what is. And he is the best hurler in Ireland at the moment, and he will be for the next few years too.
You really blossomed in Fitzgibbon, and then this has all happened so quickly. Senior debut 2017, and suddenly here we are. You've a National League title in the can, you've an All-Ireland in the can. The other thing I just wanted to ask you about was your free taking.
Yeah.
So, how regimented are you about that? Do you have a process and it's all nailed down, or are you more of a field player and have different? You might go about it in a different way each time.
I used to be. I used to just, when I was playing 21s now, I used to just throw the ball down and just run up behind it and hit it, and hopefully it'll go over. But after my last year 21s, when I came into the senior panel in Pierce, we were in the All-Ireland club final, so they weren't around, so I ended up taking frees with the seniors throughout the league. And I ended up doing a bit of work with Paul Kinnerk, and he was you need to have a routine for your frees, and I was sure, I'm hitting them grand the way they are, and he's no, you need to have a routine, and
for when the pressure comes on.
Yeah, and it makes very good sense. He's if you're playing an All-Ireland final and you're a point down and you have a last minute free to draw the game, you don't want to have that running through your head thinking about, what if I miss it? Whereas his opinion is have a routine, whereas you can be thinking about the steps to your routine, and kind of takes your mind off the pressure as well.
Hi, welcome to Shotclock, episode 9. With Gerald Gilroy missing, we've brought in super sub from Mayo. Nathan's in the house to take me on this week. 6 topics, 2 minutes on each, and then we're going to have our 5-minute section at the end. And we'll have a few predictions thrown in as well. So we'll kick it off, Nathan.
I'm a bit worried. The last time you were this close to a Mayo man, I think you smacked him in the face. I tried to unnerve you at the start, you see.
He's rattling me.
I tried to unnerve you at the start. All right, there's only one place to start. Tiger Woods, the king, is back. Is he going to beat Jack Nicklaus' record of 18 Grand Slam titles?
Is he? It's going to be hard because Tiger's 44 now, so it's going to be hard for him to get 3 majors. He should play 12 to 16 majors over the next 3 or 4 years if he's injury free. He will be competitive. I think the field is better nowadays. You've got so many guys with, I think Tiger was 35th or 45th on driving at the Masters distance-wise at the weekend, so he can't overpower the golf courses like he used to. He can't overpower the majors. There was no rough in Augusta really. He was in the trees more than anybody else, but was able to play all these wizardry shots out of it. So for him to go, I think Augusta is probably his best chance of majors. Maybe even Pebble Beach this year he'll have a chance, but it's going to be hard. I don't think he will. It's easy now with the emotion, and we were all delighted to see him win last week, but I find it hard to see him. He could tie Jack's record. I don't see him beating it, but it's going to be tight.
I see him tying Jack's record. I see him beating Tack's record. You did him at his service, 43. He's got an extra year. That's 4 more majors to go and do it. You look at this year alone, Bethpage Black, the USPGA next month. He's won there previously a major. Pebble Beach produced the greatest golfing feat of all time in his victory at the US Open. He knows these major championship courses, and he didn't just change the game in terms of talent, in terms of how he handled his body. He changed the game in terms of his course management, and he showed that at the Masters. He knew where to have his misses. I just think he's the smartest golfer that's out there, and he's going to peak at the right times, which is the key thing. He turned up at the end of last season. He contended at the Open. He contended at the USPGA. He won the Tour Championship. I think we'll see less of Tiger on the course. We may see him play 16, 17 times a season, and that little bit of energy that he can bring to the major championships, for me, knowing all that he has done before, means that he can get the 4 majors, which when you think, in the last 10 years, Rory McIlroy is the only one to win 4 majors, it will be one of the all-time great careers for the second coming alone.
Yeah, and I think the Tiger effect, you could see the Tiger effect the last day. His 2 playing partners, Finau,
Molinari.
Molinari was 2 over, Finau was level par. You're talking about your course management. Tiger was able to get it to that point.
All right, where are we going next?
Top 4. So, top 4, my team, Chelsea, are there. Arsenal, or Spurs are 3rd, Arsenal are 4th, Chelsea 5th, United 6th. My question to you, Nathan, being the soccer expert, is who's getting to the Champions League out of these teams?
Well, Manchester United won't be. The next week will absolutely derail their challenge on every front. They go to Goodison Park, where Everton have finally found some form on Sunday. Then they have a Manchester derby, and then they take on Chelsea. It's 10 days that is going to see Manchester United, unfortunately, fall apart this season. They just don't have the quality at the back. Then you come down to Chelsea and Arsenal. Maybe one of these sides will win the Europa League. It could well be the Europa League final. We could end up with both of them in there. I think Tottenham are nailed on. They're easily the best of the top 3, the top 4. They had a bad dip for 1 month, but aside from that, they've been comfortably better. And if you had to side between Arsenal and Chelsea, I just think that Arsenal have shown a bit more over the past month. You couldn't trust this Chelsea dressing room. You couldn't trust Eden Hazard over the final 5-6 weeks, whereas Aubameyang and Lacazette will score the goals to get the job done for Arsenal.
Yeah, well, I disagree with you picking Arsenal over Chelsea. Just for the point of view that I'm a Chelsea fan, and Chelsea are going to show a bit of bottle, and Hazard is going to have a big last month. But on the run-in, Chelsea have obviously that United game, but they should win the rest of the games. Arsenal have a good run-in as well, but they have a good few games on the road. I know they won a big game on the road at last weekend, but and also you've got to throw in this Europa Cup if Chelsea can win it, which is possible. Maybe Arsenal could win it, but yeah, one of them winning it makes it could have 5 teams in the Champions League next year. Am I right?
You're right. If Arsenal finish top 4, Chelsea finish top 5th, win the Europa League, we'll have 5 English teams. So maybe everyone's happy, except Manchester United supporters.
Great. You're next.
You're happy with that?
Yeah.
All right. NBA playoffs, they're underway. Who's your fancy?
I picked the Rockets, I think on episode 2 of Shotclock, so I'm sticking with the Rockets. I was a bit worried with the way a few teams had defended James Harden by putting him on his left hand, but look, the playoffs are here. It's the best type of NBA basketball to watch. I struggle to watch the regular season games. I actually can't sit down and watch a full regular season game from start to finish because it lacks pace, it lacks intensity, it lacks effort. It lacks fellas squaring up to each other. It lacks that atmosphere that the playoffs bring. So if you haven't watched much basketball, it's on Sky Sports. Get watching the playoffs. The Warriors lost a 31-point lead 2 nights ago to the Los Angeles Clippers. A huge moment is also Boogie Cousins going down injured, who was like the 5th All-Star that was joining that roster. But they can still win they can still win it all. They've been to 3 of the last 4. They've won 3 of the last 4 finals with the team they have. KD, who was on 16 technical fouls, who would have got suspended in the last game of the season with his tech, but when the regular season finishes, they're all cancelled. You go into the playoffs, you get 6 in the playoffs. If you get a 7th, you miss a game. He's gotten 2 already. Patrick Beverley is upsetting him, getting in his grill, and that's exactly what the playoffs do. It's very rare you're going to see that in the regular season. These guys play 82 games. They're doing a lot of feeling each other out. The 2 teams in the East that we fancy, the Sixers and the Celtics, Sixers were so poor the first night, although they turned it around last night. 2 nights ago, they had a big win. Ben Simmons, their all-star, was big, but it's the best basketball to watch. It's right up there. I would say probably March Madness with the college game is the best to watch, because these kids are literally could be playing their last game with their universities, which is like a family to them. It's like a home away from home for them. But the NBA playoffs is brilliant basketball to watch.
The Warriors blowing a 31-point lead. Arrogance, cockiness.
Yeah, probably a bit of everything, and it just shows you that in any sport, if you've got the right attitude and you don't give up and you keep going to the end and you test fellas' pulses and you get in their face, that you can win anything, and that's what the Clippers did last week.
All right, next up we're going to talk Katie Taylor.
Yeah, Katie has agreed to fight with Delphine Persoon, the Belgian. It's on the same night as Joshua fights in Madison Square Garden. If she can win all the belts, she's obviously the GOAT, Nathan, am I right?
You're right. You're dead right. Even though Clarissa Shields seems to think she's the GOAT. Problem for Katie Taylor, one coming very quickly, is that the Anthony Joshua fight is in doubt, we hear, over the last 24 hours. Jar Miller may have a few issues out of the ring that he has to deal with, but Katie's big enough, maybe she can go and headline by herself, or they just throw some nobody in there with Joshua from to beat the head off. Where does Katie go next, though? She's going to be the greatest of all time in female boxing. She's going to unite all the belts. Does she hang on then and just continue to dominate for the next 5 years, or does she go chasing the big money in the UFC?
Yeah, absolutely. The UFC would be something, I think, if she went down to John Kavanagh for a year or two and tried to work on her wrestling and her Brazilian jiu-jitsu and all that kind of stuff. But she'd be dangerous in the ring at her weight with her punching power. And I love the way Katie fights, because she's right in their face. There's elbows going in. She's really swinging hard. She's swinging from the rafters, really, when she's going after people. So her with those UFC gloves on would be a dangerous sight. How strong she is, her balance. It's obviously such a big deal. But she's got to go win all the belts first. She's kind of got to probably do that and, see where her hunger levels are and her desire are to keep going at the top and try and chase that. If you're doing it for 3 or 4 years, it's going to be hard to keep going.
I don't see Katie going to UFC. I think she wants to finish undefeated, unified world boxing champion. Give it 4 or 5 years, beat all comers, and bow out at the very, very top.
She's a terrific role model, and her demeanour and the way she goes about things is probably, the legacy she'll leave is that every young girl that goes boxing in Ireland or does any form of self-defence can look at Katie Taylor and kind of go, yeah, I want to be that person. Whereas you feel if she, I don't think she's really the personality to go into the WWE to challenge Becky Lynch. Now that Ronda Rousey's taken a few years out to have a family. I think that's the latest reports coming from the WWE. So maybe there's an all-Irish battle there, but I think Katie is our boxing champion, and I really hope she does go on and beat this girl and become the unified world champion, and leave no doubts that she is the greatest of all time to put on a pair of gloves.
I know there's nothing that gets you as excited as sports governance. We've been talking about the FAI all week. Maybe attention will switch to the GAA next. What one change would you make to the GAA?
It's hard because the GAA does do so much well. It's hard to, but look, I'm not going to go down the road of fixtures, and that's obviously, look, we all know that there's an issue. We talked about it here a few minutes ago on OTBAM about, April being a club month and can't train, and so there's all them kind of things. But I think they do their best with all that.
Well, clearly not. You were training in April and nothing ever happened. Revelation.
Weren't Kildare were playing
in
Roscommon, yeah. So stop trying to make this out like it's going to be there's sanctions coming down the line for Kerry if Nathan gets his way.
You just cost Kerry home advantage.
I'm going up with a pair of binoculars. I think the Leeds manager is sending me up to watch Mayo training to see if they're doing a bit on Tuesday nights around Castlebar.
Lads are in the pub.
Yeah, they're in the pub. But no, I think for players, players are never going to get paid in this organisation, and rightly so. But I mentioned it a few weeks ago. I think looking at tax breaks for players, because they're putting so much on the line to play, because they're missing so much time away from work, because we have a lot of guys that aren't going into the workforce because they want to represent their county to the best of their ability, and going into the workforce could be detrimental to that because of the strain that's put on modern day GA players. Even guys that are retired, like, even in my team, a guy like Declan Sullivan, who'll probably need 2 knee replacements down the road because he's no cartilage in either knee, and he played the last year of his career heroically with the knee swelling up at the end of the game. If the GA were to cover these guys' operations, or if they had something down the line like that, of course, there's insurance and all that, but I think that's the only thing they can do possibly better for players, is that when a player retires, it isn't thanks very much and good luck, that there's if you've played 10 years for your county, you get a certain amount of a tax break the time you were playing, and then afterwards, if you need an operation, if you need a hip replacement, if you need a knee replacement, if you don't have money, if you don't have big insurance, I think that should be covered from the GA. But that's about it. They do most stuff well, in fairness.
No time for me to wax lyrical about a 2-tier championship.
Yeah. Well, I just said I wasn't going to talk fixtures in 2 league championship, but the 2-tier championship does need to happen. I agree with you 100%. Next up is Champions Cup Rugby, and we've 2 very exciting semi-finals coming up the weekend. Who have you got, Mitten?
Well, I'm not sure even Newcastle, the great party city that it is, could cope with a Leinster-Munster Heineken Champions Cup.
I think it's the one
final.
city that can cope, Mitten. Newcastle can cope with that.
I unfortunately think it's going to be a Leinster-Saracens final, the 2 best teams in European rugby over the last half a decade. Munster have certainly improved from 2 years ago when Saracens demolished them in the semi-final, but the fact that Joey Carberry is missing is just a monumental loss. Tyler Blandell has obviously come in and stepped in well, but Carberry gives them that X-factor alongside Conor Murray, and Saracens are the big beast in every possible manner. You just know they're going to get to a certain level of performance. I don't think Leinster are going to be overly tested this weekend against Toulouse at the Aviva Stadium. At that ground, they just get it done again and again. If Johnny Sexton's back, I'd expect Leinster to win this by maybe 15 points. And unfortunately, unless Munster, who showed, I think, in the quarter-final that, as Liam Toland often says, they have that muscle memory of, if it's a tight game, of not panicking, of knowing that their chance will come. Keith Earls is in the form of his career. Maybe that gives them the chance, but unfortunately, this Saracens team's just too good.
Yeah, they're too good, but they lost to Bristol Bears last week. So in a game that, would be really, if Munster were to look at winning this game, and I'm sure they are, that's the way you want to win it, 23-21 with a kick in the last minute. Can Munster do that? Absolutely. They've got quality all over the pitch. Saracens are a beast, we know that. But can you drag them into a dogfight? And I think if Munster, who are probably the kings over the last 15 years of dogfights, if they can bring them into a dogfight and get that win, and we get Munster and Leinster heading to Newcastle, what a Champions Cup final that would be. And I think the scramble for tickets and the scramble for flights and boats or whatever to get you over to that game will become huge. But I love, obviously, Munster, man. My heart is Munster. Probably my head overruling. I wish my head would overrule my heart sometimes, but I'm going to just pick Munster in maybe a 20-17 kind of game. And I agree with you. Leinster are going to win. Leinster are going to be there. And look, whether it be Leinster or Saracens, Leinster or Munster, I think it's going to be a terrific final, and the tournament has really kicked off now. So yeah, exciting times ahead and a good weekend for rugby fans.
You'll be allowed back home after this, that's the main thing. So Stephen Kelly has joined us back in studio. 5 minutes with Stephen Kelly.
Yeah.
Answer anything. What do you want to talk to him about, Kieran?
Well, I suppose you were 23 when you got your Irish call-up after playing about 50 caps for Spurs in the Premiership. I was also 23 when I kind of broke through for Kerry. I suppose, why did it take him so long to cop the 2 of us?
Where were you hiding your talent?
What was going on?
I know, it's not like it wasn't on display. I think
I was doing well for my club, Aston Stacks. You were doing well for Spurs. What's going on?
I don't know, it was a strange one. Like I said, I kind of made my debut for Tottenham in 2003, and had been in the squad and playing regularly for the up until I made my debut for Ireland in 2006. So to be playing in the Premiership and playing, I suppose, 50 games at that time, scoring a few goals, making a name for yourself, like now that player wouldn't be first being captain of the team, because of what we have. So it just was a different time, and I suppose we have a very different squad. Back then we had nothing but Premiership players, and it was Roy Keane and Stephen Carr, Steve Finnan, so it was a bit different. But for a young player coming through, playing senior football, I think he should be recognised and given a cap at that stage. Then it should have been the same for you.
Yeah, well, I agree with you 100%. But I think at 23 as well. And look, you'd been obviously in the Premiership for 3 years at that stage, and you're playing in Old Trafford and you're playing against the best players in the world. But I felt at 23, when it did happen for me, that I was very ready for it.
Yeah.
That I wasn't this kind of 18-year-old kid that was going to let it go to my head. My first year couldn't have gone better. I ended up getting Player of the Year. And I think if that happened to me as maybe an 18, 19-year-old, would I have been able to handle it well? But I think at the fact that 23 and I'd experienced so much ups and downs that I was kind of ready for anything. Were you kind of feeling that way when you got in there eventually? Were you ready?
Kind of experienced. Even for me to make my debut for Tottenham, I'd gone on loan to 3 or 4 different clubs. Yeah. So I went to Southend, QPR, Watford, and then I made my debut for Tottenham. So I'd built myself up to play for it, and then Tottenham was playing for them, so I'd built myself up then to play for Ireland. So I was ready for it. I was more than ready for it. I felt it probably should have come a little bit sooner, and I'd been in the squad and sat on the bench on a good few occasions and a good few friendlies, thinking just throw me on, just give me a cap, but it didn't happen, and it was disappointing. But for finally to come and then to stay consistent in the squad for it was like 10-11 years was amazing. So but I was ready for it. I definitely felt like at that point I was I felt like an established senior player then almost, and even though you're young at 23, you've played a lot of league football, so you kind of felt like this is going to be no big step up for me. It should be okay to step up to it.
Out of all the stuff that you've done and the places you've played and the players you've played against, and we asked you, Nathan, I'll ask you earlier on, and I'll leave you hold that for Nathan. But what was your highlight? If you were to pick one, and it's hard asking a sports person because there's the country one, there's playing with the club.
No, I think playing for your country overshadows everything for me by a country mile. So getting to represent Ireland the first time was just like, I remember I was so nervous that first game. Even though I was ready, I was so nervous because it was Ireland. But then getting to captain my country, which I did, that was the highlight, I'd say, of my career. That was just the best thing. You grow up watching Ireland, watching tournaments, being such a huge fan, and everything was just football, and then to put on the green jersey was just an amazing. It's like the occasion, like I said, I've been in the squad probably 100 times and got 40 caps, so just being involved was amazing. But then to get to lead my team out was that was the highlight. Like on club level there's different things, but international, that's the pinnacle.
Who was that against?
It was against Uruguay. Yeah, it was we got beat 3-2, but it was a fantastic game. Diego Forlan, and it was just unbelievable.
In the squad then, what's next?
This?
Yeah, good.
This is it.
You might reconsider it this morning.
5 minutes to Stephen Kelly every Wednesday.
No, I think this is, like I said, I've done my coaching badges. I'm in a position where I could go into, but I just don't feel ready for that yet. I've gone down the media road a little while. I've done quite a few TV things. I've been in with the lads, which have been gracious enough to have me on, and I really enjoy it. It's just nice to be able to talk about football and talk about something that you have such a passion about and been involved for a long time, and I love this side of it. It's great to be able to debate things and get, so I think this is and
it kind of keeps you interested. It keeps you watching everything. It keeps you like you have your badges, which is great, and which obviously allows you at any stage to say, do you know what, I'm going to give this management thing a go. But this media stuff really does force you to kind of keep an eye on everything and watch everything. You're watching
every game at every level, and you're just keeping an eye, and you're trying to pick out, like, you're analysing games, trying to pick out, different keys, different things. So it's very interesting, and like I said, it's just doing the badges was great because it gives you that analytical side of it that you wouldn't be used to. So then when you're doing this sort of thing now, you're watching it a bit differently. So it was actually, they coincided quite well with each other. But this just keeps you involved at a much kind of broader level and you're watching like top end games, it's some championship games. So it's brilliant. And like I said, it's just to be able to come in and discuss something you're so passionate about and then you've done for such a long time. It's so enjoyable.
Yeah.
When was this photograph taken, Kieran? Juggling both balls. I see what they were doing there.
Yeah, that I play both. That's a UTEP tracksuit that I got off of a guy called Roy Smallwood that I played with for 2 years. Roy was a good man to drink a bottle of brandy after a game, and as a 19-year-old, he was a good housemate. But I wore that tracksuit for it was just the coolest. It was that kind of fleece velour that was all big back then, and look at the size of it. It was he was 6'7". And I wore it around town every day, thinking I was the coolest thing since sliced pans. So washing it was a big deal because I had to go wear something else for that day. I was in the wash, but that was 2005. About 22 there, yeah. So I'm just after turning down scholarships to America to stay in.
Should have gone.
Should have gone, shouldn't I?
That's what we've said down in Mayo for many years. Definitely to a low 7.
Yeah.
If we won that one, the confidence would have kicked on.
Thanks for coming on, Shotclock, and great to have you on, and best luck with everything in the future.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
We're going to end with our predictions.
Yeah.
So first up,
what have we got?
Liverpool against Porto.
Oh, yeah. Liverpool. I just think they're on a run of form. They'll want to go over there and win this. They'll want to keep the foot down and keep the pressure on themselves to deliver. And I think just the more they can win, and the more, even with Jordan Henderson, the more advanced role, it's more chance to get that even going better for their Premiership run-in. But yeah, I expect Liverpool to go over here and try and score and get an away goal and put this tie to bed.
Yeah, I think this time last year you would have thought that maybe Liverpool could concede a couple of goals over in Porto. This year they have a different control to their game, obviously defensively. They may make some changes and try and rest a couple of players.
Be careful.
Bring in Joe Gomez, who's back fit, but I think Liverpool win this game, maybe 2-0 again, and will cruise through. Manchester City, Spurs.
I think Porto will score, by the way, so I'll go for a 1-1 draw. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Liverpool, actually, in that. Spurs City. Not just saying it because he's here, but I'd love Spurs to win this game. If you remember a few years ago, Peter Crouch got that famous header to qualify for the Champions League.
Yeah.
That was at Man City. I think there's a bit of pressure on Man City. I think, we talked about it a number of weeks ago that, I kind of said I'd like Liverpool to win the league, but would they fold under the City pressure, the onslaught of just them winning every game? But Liverpool haven't folded. And the first chink in the armour was last week when City lost. So I'll go for a draw in that game tonight, 1-1.
So Spurs go through?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I just think maybe this is the day where City show finally that they have it and somehow progress. Finally, this day next week we'll be chatting about the Manchester derby. What do you think?
See, a lot depends on
what happens tonight.
Yeah, I think so, because if Spurs can pull this off, I think it derails City a small bit, because they won't think it will, but but it's on it. Man United are away. We saw last night, if they're going to go in with that back four, I'm going to give that one to City, 2-0.
All right, I'll bide my time and make
it's another shot clock in the books. Obviously, a clear winner in Kieran Donaghy, because Jared never gives me any credit for winning anything, so I'll take that win.
We'll see. No, I'm not going to go that far.
Kerry 1, Mayo 0.
But I'm obviously afraid of disagreeing with you. So. All right, we're going to talk about the FAI again next here on OTBAM with barrister Aaron Shearer joining us in studio. First, though, another clip from last night's Off the Ball. Limerick's Aaron Gillan was in studio. You can watch the whole thing back on offtheball.com on podcast or on YouTube. Here's Aaron on that wonder goal in the league final.
Tom, to be fair to him, is always good to give in a good ball, and I don't know, was he trying to hit it in high or was he trying to hit it out to the corner? I don't know, it was just so unusual how it all happened. He drilled the ball, I was like, geez, what's he doing? And the second unusual bit of that was, like, Noel Connor's like one of the best defenders in Ireland, and he has been for the last 9 or 10 years.
Brilliant.
Like, he's never going to miss a ball like that again. Like, it was just pure luck that he did miss it. And
sorry to interrupt you, because I remember talking to Tommy Welch here on the Monday night about it, and Tommy said one of the interesting things was he felt you gambled on Noel Connors missing it because you wouldn't have time to react if Connors gets a touch on it. Is that what was going through your head, or what did you think? I'm going to take a chance that Connors misses this, and I'm just going to watch the flight of the ball and flick it?
To be honest, it all happened so quick I didn't have that much time to think about it. But I think in the clip I was watching it back, like, I actually went to make a dart to run out the left corner, but then I realised Tom wasn't hitting the ball out there. And the next thing, like, Noel Connors was out in front of me, and he's a horse of a man. Like, I wasn't going moving him out of the way, like, and next thing, I don't know, he just missed it, and it was just instinct, like, it's nothing I've ever practiced before. And I could just go home now and try it 100 times and I wouldn't do it again, like, it's just one of them once-off things.
Yeah. And were you trying to put it in a certain direction or just help it vaguely towards goal?
Sure, when the ball is coming at that pace, like, just any little flick at all, and obviously caught Stephen O'Keefe off guard as well, and just thankful I went in.
What was your reaction when it goes in?
I was shocked. I didn't know what was going on, to be honest. I did a few jumps up into the air and went awful fool of myself, but just kind of ecstatic, and came at an important time in the match. I think we were only 9-8 up, so it helped us, and I think we kind of kicked on from there.
Yeah, really good stuff from Aaron Gillani. You can watch that back on offtheball.com. Now, we're switching back to the FAI and the ongoing controversy and the legal aspects of it, because barrister Aaron Shearer has joined us in studio. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
So, looking at the front pages of all the papers, there's obviously huge change at the FAI, and there was always a legal aspect to this, it seems, since the Office of Director of Corporate Enforcement went into the FAI to investigate exactly what happened with the €100,000 bridging loan. The ante seems to have been upped quite a bit yesterday, with Deloitte filing a notice to the Companies Registration Office on Monday over breaches of the Companies Act on the grounds that accounts weren't kept properly at the FAI.
Yes.
Just how serious is this?
Well, it's hard to know, and if we knew more about the complaint that had been made by Deloitte in respect of the accounts that have been kept at the FAI, how long those accounting irregularities have been in place, why perhaps they haven't been reported before now, how significant those irregularities are. All of that will feed into what may or may not happen if the ODC become involved.
How much personal responsibility is there on directors and officials within the FAI?
Well, under the new companies legislation, it has certainly tightened up directorial responsibility or individual responsibility for mismanagement at company level. So it's certainly a more onerous regime now since the 2014 Act than it was before the 2014 Act, and I would have thought there's some certain people are going to be feeling hot under the collar.
There's obviously a lot of different reports and investigations going on at the moment. Grant Thornton are in there. There's the Mazars report, the Director of Corporate Enforcement. There's a general governance review. It seems there's a now separate independent review as well, that ultimately John Delaney stepping aside from his role until that's completed. What sort of time frame do you think we're at with some of these reports, and the Director of Corporate Enforcement in particular, and any legal outcome out of that? Because people have a hunger for change right now when it comes to the FAI, but if there's a legal aspect to this, like, could this run for years?
Yeah, I would have thought it won't be quick in relation to any corporate enforcement aspect, and I think any governance change insofar as it becomes dependent on the outcome of that will be very slow. So I think those things will need to move as a twin track.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. If some of these reports and investigations end up taking a year, 18 months, is it going to be difficult for Sport Ireland to force through change at board level?
Well, I think it could be difficult in two separate ways. It was a point that was made on primetime last night by Fintan Drury. The prohibition on excessive government interference in the way the FAI might do its business is one thing, and then there will be, I think, a difficulty in dealing with the labyrinthine structures within the FAI. I mean, a perusal of the Constitution last night didn't leave me a whole load the wiser in terms of how we're going to be able to move forward in terms of reforming those structures.
In what way? In that?
Well, there's an FAI council that is a cast of thousands. That meets once every quarter. There's then the board of management, which has 11 members. One of those is the CEO, which I would have thought is atypical in terms of good governance, and a paid member of staff like that probably ought not to be on the board of management. And then there is something that's known or described as the General Secretariat, which I don't see otherwise described or defined in the Constitution, and it's described as the administrative body of the association. So as we get away from the spotlight and as the public pressure to change, or rather the public focus moves on to a different subject, you're going to be left with trying to unravel a lot of those things, trying to convince the membership of the FAI or the people who have a vote at the AGM that the type of structural change that would involve maybe outside expertise being brought onto the board, how reluctant or what type of reluctance will there be to that type of change further down the line when the immediate pressure isn't there? I think it's a fair job of work, I have to say.
It's essentially turkeys voting for Christmas. There's
a touch of that, yeah, there's no doubt about that.
That you're putting what we believe, and a lot of people believe, is the best interests of Irish football to the fore, which would mean giving up a lot of your power.
Yes. And the other thing I was just saying to Stephen outside, there could be dead bodies everywhere at the end of this. I mean, if you look at, for example, the way if you look at the expenses, and the expenses, John Delaney's entitled to fair process in relation to how he used that credit card. But even on its face, things like the cash withdrawals and the clothing shopping, they're improper uses, I think, of a company credit card. Now, if that investigation, even into that isolated thing, reveals a level of misuse of FAI funds, and the question arises, where did those funds come from? To what extent were Sport Ireland funds intermeddled with other FAI funds?
Is it not possible though that, so as you say, John Delaney, and you look at the story and it makes a very interesting story in the Sunday Times as to the various shops he was spending using the company credit card in.
Yes.
But is it not possible that he had an arrangement with the FAI that at the end of every month he just repaid back?
Quite possibly, and that's why I say he's entitled to due process, and it may well be that there's a benign explanation. But we might also allow for the fact that there isn't a benign explanation. And if there isn't at the end of all that, then questions need to be asked about who was overseeing what, to what extent there was a delineation between money coming in from sponsors, money coming in from government, money coming in from Sport Ireland or whatever else, and to what extent there were proper accounting structures and proper oversight structures. And clearly, I mean, to a large extent, John Delaney seems to have been the FAI for the last 10 or 14 years, but other people were involved. And as I say, if there aren't benign explanations, we could find a slew of bodies at the end of this. And what does that mean in terms then of governance?
And of all these investigations, where do we find the answers out to those questions? Is it in this full audit that Sport Ireland were talking about yesterday? Does it come from the Director of Corporate Enforcement? Should that be identified quite readily and quite quickly through the initial Grant Thornton report?
In terms of the ODCE, I think that will concentrate on, well, it necessarily will concentrate on matters that relate to the company's legislation. There are then broader issues of governance, I think, which will probably come out in one of the myriad reports. I don't know how forensic any of those are going to be or how broad-ranging they're going to be. But as I say, the more you delve into it, the more questions may be asked rather than answered.
Should there be a direct, when the money from Sport Ireland, say for instance, should there be a link of where that's directly gone to? Should you see that?
I think that's
just be muddled up.
I think that's a very obvious first question, just from my experience with the GPA, for example, and the government funding in respect to the player grants, that's a required line item in the GPA accounts. There's an oversight committee in relation to the way that money is spent and to ensure that player grants go out to players and who they go out to and whether there's any money left over at the end of it, how that is accounted for. Now, has that level of oversight been present in relation to any of the Sport Ireland funding here? And if it hasn't, why not? And whose responsibility if there hasn't been that level of oversight?
So from a GPA point of view, was that ring-fenced? The money that was paid into was that a separate account? So the money went in.
It wasn't a separate account as far as I'm aware, but there were very specific.
There was no one who was going to every.
Yes.
And there's different amounts. If you're getting an All-Ireland final, there's a certain amount, but it brackets all the way down. But everybody's getting an amount.
But there wasn't an opportunity, or I guess if it was same accounts, technically you could have, that if the GPA found itself on hard times, all of a sudden you could dip into that money and repay it at a later date?
That's subject to confirmation. I don't believe it was a separate account in respect of those particular monies, but I think the point is very well made. Why should it not be? If there's a specific purpose, for example, for government money, why is there not an account that shows that money going into the account and then line items in terms of where that money is spent?
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
And I guess we look at the FAI with 24 bank accounts, and there's no reason why they couldn't have had separate bank accounts.
Although they clearly had one that was in excess of 1.5 million, is that right? Is that the overdraft limit?
The overdraft, you said, that's what.
So there's an awful lot going on in that account.
And I'd say some of them accounts were opened maybe possibly for something like that. Look, we'll put it in here into this account, we'll open up a new, like 24 bank accounts, so we'll open up a new one and then we'll give it out here. But I'd say it became so desperate at the end that they were just transferring money from.
Well, it was clearly and you look at even some of the timelines of when money is paid in, keeping on top of FAI accounts is clearly a huge job for the finance department, because money's coming in at different times of the year from UEFA. Clubs require money at different times of the year. The cash flow, it seems, was always an issue. Now, I don't think anyone thought it was ever as grave as their answer to Sport Ireland yesterday, that literally they had looked through their 24 bank accounts. They needed this €100,000 from John Delaney because the money had run out.
Gone, yeah.
Where to next then? Because, as I say, people's thoughts on where football in Ireland could go, I think, have changed dramatically over the last week.
Yeah.
Like, we've had many conversations over the years of ideal scenarios of getting, should say, qualified people into the right roles, but it all seemed sort of pie in the sky because of the board structure that had been there in the FAI. Niall Quinn's talking about a change of name, maybe a change of structure, following in the lines of the Olympic Council of Ireland. From what you've been reading then, does that seem an incredibly difficult task? Yeah. Like, could you wind down the FAI?
Well, I think it will be a difficult task. It's funny, my views on this have migrated a little bit over the course of the last 24 and 48 hours, in that I initially thought what we were left with here was such governance carnage that it was going to be something of a greenfield site in terms of reform. But I suspect as you get further and further into this, the problems with that governance reform will become more and more manifest. And it may not be that easy, would be my initial view.
So
my current view.
The next CEO, and Niall Quinn's name is obviously thrown out there, but there's other people like Pádraig Smith, who's been working over in America, Peter Sherrard, who's involved with the Olympic Council, who's the former communications director with the FAI. Is your sense that whoever that person is going to be voted in by the council, by grassroots members, that it won't be simply a case of Sport Ireland or the minister looking around for the best person?
I don't think they can, again, just with that prohibition on excessive government interference in the FAI's business. I would suspect there probably isn't the ability for the government to foist someone upon the FAI. Just as I looked at the CEO position last night, again in the Constitution, the CEO is a member of the board. I didn't see anything else in the Constitution. Again, I was distracted somewhat by the Juventus and Ajax game.
The CEO had been moved off the board, though, off the board of directors.
In the 2019...
As part of the Jonathan Hall review.
Well, I put it this way, the current constitution, which was ratified in February 2019, still includes the CEO as a member of a person.
So it hasn't been updated since the Jonathan Hall review and the executive vice president.
No, and I would have thought that there are certain administrative loopholes or ratification processes that need to be gone through before that can happen.
Okay. All right, I think we're going to talk about this a lot more over the coming weeks. Thanks a lot for coming to the studio, Aaron.
No problem.
Just another mention here that we have a brilliant competition for you this week. It's running all week on OTBAM with thanks to Turkish Airlines, proud sponsors of Cricket Ireland. Turkish Airlines are giving you the chance to fly anywhere in the world with Turkish Airlines. To enter, just head to the link we've tweeted and posted in our live stream for OTBAM and fill out the entry form. It's all ahead of a massive summer of cricket for Ireland as we host some of the biggest teams in the world, such as England, West Indies and Bangladesh. Also on May 5th, the Ireland's men's team will face England in Malahide with a tri-series against Bangladesh and the West Indies to follow. So make sure you get into that. Phil Egan's join us in the studio to run us through all the day's sports headlines in a moment. But first, Leinster's Sean Cronin has been speaking for the first time since he was dropped by Joe Schmidt, and speaking pretty candidly as well last night about his World Cup hopes and where he thinks he fits into Joe Schmidt's future plans.
Obviously a small bit disappointed, but that's part and parcel of being a professional rugby player. You got to take the highs with the lows. I always feel like I've something to prove. I think that's what drives you on as a professional rugby player. You want to be better, and you want to prove yourself, go up against the best, and getting a good opportunity to do that this weekend, hopefully.
Do you have any fear at all that you might not be in Joe's plans, or that you'd be confident that you will still be part of his plans for the World Cup?
I'd like to think so, but again, the ball's in my court, I suppose. I need to try and play well, and like I said, all I can do is do that and see what happens from there. I just had a quick phone call with him. I think he was gone back to New Zealand post Six Nations, because I come back to Leinster, so I'm going to catch up with him in the next, definitely before the season's ended anyway, to do a quick review, and I think I'm firmly still in the plan. So like I said, the ball is in my court. I just need to play well. And there's obviously other hookers around the country playing pretty well as well, so that's all I can do, and see what happens from there.
Achilles in the Lee Miller,
towards Achilles. Lift that up there,
Did you tear it? You did?
He did, yeah. We're live, lads, so we can get into all the medical issues. I was just asking why he wasn't playing in the game, the fundraiser for Sean Cox, but you did your Achilles as well.
I did my Achilles as well, yeah.
We gave Kilban a right hold going over yesterday, because unfortunately Kev came on for the second half, did his calf, I think, within about 20 seconds. Kenny Cunningham was beside him, insisting that he go off, telling the physios to come on and get him off. Kev obviously not wanting to be embarrassed having played for 20 seconds on it, refused to leave and is now walking like a 75-year-old man.
Yeah,
so you probably made the best decision.
Yeah.
Phil Egan as well.
Did the lads even do warm-ups, or what's the story?
I presume
No matter
so.
how much you warm up when you're up around 39 you'll be warming up for 4
ain't no
hours.
hope.
As soon as we go from 80% to 100%, something's going to go.
So we're going to talk Spurs in a little while, but Phil, you're going to run us through everything else?
Yeah, I know you've covered the Champions League, but while the Champions League football was going on, there was a big game in the Premier League. Like, you know,
Was it on telly?
I don't know, to be
Were
honest.
you watching it?
No, I
Were you a
wasn't.
proper hipster?
No, I wasn't watching Brighton and Cardiff, but it was actually a massive game. And
Big result.
yeah, Cardiff won 2-0, goals from Mendes-Lang and Morrison, and it's basically put even more pressure on Chris Hughton, Brighton manager. It's 4 defeats in a row. They haven't scored in those 4 games. They're just 2 points above Cardiff now. Cardiff play Liverpool on Sunday. Brighton play Wolves away on Saturday, but looking at Brighton and Cardiff's remaining fixtures, Brighton still have to play Spurs, Arsenal and Manchester City on the final day. Cardiff obviously have Liverpool at home. They play United away on the final day of the season, but in between those games, away to Fulham, home to Crystal Palace. So certainly they're not out of it. And
They'll be coming for you next week.
yeah.
Well, the Fulham game is the one from Cardiff's point of view that suddenly if you can win that, you're right back in it. It's so difficult at this stage of the season to make predictions because you look at their last 2 games, Arsenal could well be in a Europa League semi-final 3 days beforehand. Maybe that's their priority. Manchester City may have won the title, in which case they're going there preparing for a Champions League final, resting everybody, or they need to win that game to win the title and going out all guns blazing. Chris Hughton, you've obviously worked with him quite a bit. He's under pressure, there's no question, because they were booed off the pitch at half-time even against Bournemouth. As a character, how do you think he responds in these sort of situations?
I think Chris is very kind of, the way he sets his team up, he will just go back to the training ground and try and work on it and get his team right. He's very much hands-on coach. He really wants to get the best out of his players, so he will just try and go back to the training ground, get the lads focused, get them ready, and just do as much as he can team-wise, shape, to get them prepared for the next game. It'll definitely be affecting them because it's almost like repeating itself on what's happened before. We discussed already that, you know, things with Norwich, Newcastle, he's got himself, these teams promoted, he's done really well with them, and then they've kind of stagnated a little bit, and then he saw himself out of a job, which is really disappointing because Chris is a fantastic coach. I had him at Tottenham. He was the one that I'd give credit to for me getting in through the academy up the ranks. He took me off to the side and really worked on me. So in that sense, he was brilliant. But so you do feel sorry for him because you feel like Brighton have come into the Premiership and they've stayed at a level where the other teams that have come in have gone up a little bit, and that's the issue. Because if you can't be investing in, like, Glenn Murray is their top striker. I played with Glenn, he's fantastic, he does a great job for them, but they've been needing to replace him for the last 3 seasons.
He hasn't scored since the Palace game, and he wasn't even meant to start that game. He was only a late replacement for Andoni.
There you go. So, and they've been trying to get someone in to replace him, and they haven't been able to do that. Whether they've not spent enough, whether they haven't picked out the right player, but that's stuff that hasn't happened. And if you're relying on players that you're trying to replace, that's not the best thing to be in. So defensively as well, Chris always likes to have his team set up defensively strong and be a unit, and they've been conceding a lot of goals, and that's an issue for them. They've been conceding too many goals in too many games, and losing against Cardiff was a huge result for Cardiff, but very disappointing for them.
What else you got?
Yeah, just a couple of stories that would have broken overnight, our time anyway. Israel Folau has requested a code of conduct hearing after having his contract terminated by Rugby Australia. It's for making homophobic comments on social media. So the chief executive of Rugby Australia, Raylene Castle, described it as not an unexpected outcome. He said they're going to work to confirm a date for the hearing as soon as possible. And Anthony Joshua, his US debut, it's meant to be on the 1st of June at Madison Square Garden against Jarrell Miller. The only problem is Jarrell Miller has tested positive for a banned substance, GW1516. It looks like a registration car number, but it's also known as Cardarine or Enduperol, and it's on the World Anti-Doping Agency banned list. And they say it's to assist in fat loss, or it can be an endurance booster. But it's not the first time he's failed a drugs test. When he was a kickboxer, he was banned for 9 months. He tested positive 5 years ago. He's actually been spouting off at Joshua, claiming that Joshua's not clean, and here this guy is after failing a drugs test. Obviously, Katie Taylor is on that card as well, and the Delphine Pursoon fight was 100% confirmed yesterday. Eddie Hearn has said that, you know, it's business as usual for Joshua. If Miller can't fight, they'll get somebody else.
Replacement, yeah.
Well, does Joshua want to fight Miller now? Do you not take a stand and say, actually, no, for the good of the sport?
You can't, like, because it's something we've talked to Andy Lee about loads of times. Like, if you're sharing the ring with somebody and you know they're taking something they shouldn't be, like, that's your life. Like, that is the health risks.
The combat sports should be just automatic life ban.
Just ban,
yeah. Life, because you could kill somebody.
You know,
he's a big man. That fella. He's a big man. If he hits you hard enough, he can do permanent damage. So
enhanced then as well. It's just ridiculous.
That's what I mean. Like, it's the one thing that it's life threatening to the other person. If a cyclist takes a load of drugs and he wins the race by 100 miles, there's nobody. He's not going to kill anybody. Like, you know, whereas these guys can. So ban him for life, I would say.
Like, it's disappointing for Joshua because this was his US debut and he has to get the US crowd in, and this was a good guy to fight because he's a mouthpiece and people know who he is. So I can remember 2017 he was meant to fight Pulev, and that 10 days before it was pulled, and he fought this guy called Carlos Takam, and it went 10 rounds, but I don't know where they're going to get
Wilder or Fury. Can you pull haul one of them in?
Those lads are already tied up. Sure, Fury is fighting Tom Schwartz and Wilder's fighting.
It's just ridiculous though, isn't it, that they're scaring around each other. Like, there's only 3 boxers that we want to see fight.
Yeah, I know.
Don't fight each other. Like, it's embarrassing that that's the situation is in.
All right, plenty more to come on that, I'm sure, on Off the Brawl over the course of the week. Now, we barely mentioned Ajax, but I think most people had flicked over at half-time from the Manchester United match to watch one of the performances of the season in the Champions League. Ajax ripped Juventus apart. Here is what Kenny Cunningham had to say about them.
It could be a phenomenal story. I mean, to beat a team of the calibre of Real Madrid and Juventus over 2 legs, consecutive rounds of the knockout stage of the Champions League would be quite phenomenal. And if they manage to do that and people start dissecting the team in terms of the players they have on the pitch, in terms of youth, inexperience at this level of competition, it's quite frightening what they're actually doing. Standout players that we've spoken about. You mentioned De Ligt in terms of how highly I regard him. Joe, I haven't seen a huge amount of him play. It's just that Real Madrid. Sometimes you just need to watch somebody play for a short period, even over 90 minutes. In the Bernabeu that night, I thought, wow, this kid is absolutely exceptional. And still, he's only 19 years of age, De Ligt. I
was reading the last time Ajax played Juve at these kind of stages, it was 97. And Juventus, who were the defending champions, they beat Ajax, and neither Freddie de Jong or De Ligt were even born then.
So Ajax through to the semi-finals of the Champions League. Will it be Manchester City or will it be Spurs they play in the last 4? John Duggan has joined us in studio, a nervous man. Is this the biggest night in Spurs history?
In my history of Spurs, 32 and a half years, Stephen, Nathan and... Take that. Yay! It's the Dublin Spurs. The Dublin Spurs.
What's going on here? You don't see me wearing a Mayo jersey in studio. Wow.
You have it up there. You've got the Halfpenny Bridge here on the scarf. Dublin Spurs. So it's a supporters club that we have regular meetings at the top of Connell Street.
What do you discuss?
The beauty of Spurs. It's like a propaganda room. There's jerseys. It's a fantastic shrine, I think, to Tottenham, and it's been going since 1992. They're an amazing Tottenham Hotspur supporters club.
I obviously spent a lot of time going over to Tottenham Hotspur. We got it. I won't put it on just yet. I'll wait till later in the summer.
Bring that to work
it's an incredible thing when you're going over to Premier League games every weekend, how you meet the same people all the time, and there's this hardcore group of Spurs fans who think they always get that 8:20 to Stansted every Sunday morning. The same 15 people every single home game.
What is funny is Mags Malloy runs the Spurs in Dublin, the supporters club, and I think Derek, one of the members, showed me a ticket from the 1981 FA Cup final. Ricky Villa scored the winner against Manchester City, and it was like this ticket was completely pristine, and it cost £6. £6. And he told me how he got over with Ray Tracy Travel, I think, at the time, and Tottenham haven't had a lot of success since then. They won the Cup in 82 and 91. They won the UEFA Cup in 84 and a couple of League Cups, Stephen, as you know. So this is the biggest night. They've only been in one semi-final of a Champions League or European Cup in 1962, and they're robbed by Benfica. Probably more a referee. This is a huge night.
So that's all very positive, John.
Well, that's what I am. I'm a positive guy.
Well, as you know, me and my negative mindset, I had a bright idea yesterday that we get you to run through the 5 worst heartbreaks of being a Spurs fan. I'm thinking of the Alex Ferguson quote of, lads, it's Spurs. What were the 5 most lads, it's Spurs moments of following them of the last 4 decades?
Reverse order. Once again, Stephen, you might have 1 or 2 as well. Arsenal to Spurs 0 in January 1989. I'd really got obsessively into Spurs at the time. I think Perry Groves came on, and I think Michael Thomas might have scored the winner, and I burst into tears. My sister was leaving to go back to the UK. We were quite close, and she was getting married or whatever, and she's much older than me, and the whole thing I was just overwhelmed by emotion as a 10-year-old. That was a pretty, and we lost to Arsenal, so it was a pretty bad memory of January 89.
And of course, if you'd kept it to 1-0, Arsenal wouldn't have won the league.
There you go. So that made it even worse. A few months later, they won the league for the first time in 18 years.
Were there tears?
I bawled my eyes out, yeah. I think the fourth one was Everton beating Spurs 4-1 in the 1995, the Amokachi game at Elland Road in the semi-final, because Klinsmann scored the winner against Liverpool in the quarter-final. They played brilliantly. I thought it was going to be their year. Sheringham also scored in that quarter-final, and then they just absolutely murdered in the semis by Everton. And going into school on the Monday morning wasn't a very pleasant experience, because I've been bigging it up a whole week, and then you're going in there and you're kind of your Tottenham away kit, and you're just humiliated. Number 3 was another Arsenal defeat, cup semi-final 1993. I'd seen Gaza score 91. It was so great. We reached the cup final. We won it. Then he went to Lazio, of course, did his knee in the final. And then a couple of years later, I thought there was a real resurgence. We'd Barnby, we'd Anderton, we had a really good team, and Tony Adams scored a late goal in the semi-final, burst into tears again. This time I was 15 years of age, going on 15, so it wasn't very mature for a Tottenham fan.
Tears going.
Would you have beaten Sheffield Wednesday in the final?
Yeah, we would have, with Chris Waddle and Sheffield Wednesday, former Spur. Number 2 is actually a regret. I could have gone to the last game at the Lane a couple of years ago. I didn't. It was Manchester United. We beat them, and then you had all these kind of fireworks and kind of memories and players being paraded on the pitch like Glenn Hoddle and that. And that's one thing I do regret, not going to see Spurs against Man United a couple of years ago in the last game at the Lane and having the programme and the memento. That was a bad move.
Went through the entire season unbeaten at White Hart Lane?
I was at the Man City game, funnily enough, we're speaking ahead of tonight, and we battered them. Ali scored twice, and Harry Kane was not playing. So that might be a positive omen. That was a great day.
And number 1...
Well, number 1 symbolises, because the first season I supported Spurs, symbolises the last 32 and a half years, and the pain and the constant fact that they always lay you down in the end, Tottenham Hotspur. Your hopes are raised, and then it all just goes horribly wrong. Although in the last few years it has been better, and there could be better days even further ahead with the new stadium. But I was having my dinner on my lap. I was 8.5. And Coventry City beat us in the FA Cup final 3-2. Keith Houghton scored a diving header. We blitzed our way through the competition. We beaten Wimbledon and Watford very easily to get to the final. It was Hoddle's last game for the club. They made a mess even of the shirts, that half the shirts had the sponsor on, half of them didn't. That was a bizarre thing. And Clive Allen scored after 2 minutes, his 49th goal of the season. 1-1 then Dave Bennett, and then 2-1 Gary Mabbutt scored for us. Then Houghton scored the diving header in the second half, and then Gary Mabbutt turned the ball into his own net in extra time from a Lloyd McGrath cross, and I don't think the dinner moved off my knees for the whole game, and it was just that utter devastation, complete and utter Mayo style devastation, Nathan. It's been like that now for 32 years, and I'm hoping tonight I'll be booking a flight to Amsterdam for the semi-final.
There's been a few. I had the Invincibles when they won the league.
in 04.
Were you playing?
I played in that game. It was 2-2. To be fair, bit of credit. We came back and they were obviously unbelievable. And Jamie Redknapp scored the first or the second, maybe. Yeah, but it was 2-2. So that was, but for the Arsenal to win the league, White Hart Lane was gutting, and then the other one would have been Sickgate. Remember?
Lasagna Gate.
Yeah.
West Ham.
Played in that game, West Ham. Yeah, last game of the season.
Were you affected by it?
No, myself and Robbie were the only two that
didn't eat lasagna.
But the funny thing about the story was
bacon and cabbage.
Yeah, it was actually bacon cabbage. Yeah. So, but the game. So obviously, so many lads came down sick. There was a lot of reserves got called in to be in the squad, and some of them actually unnamed names were played, but that was their last night of the season, so they had been out on the Friday night.
Oh no!
Yeah, so they'd been out on the Friday night, and they get phone calls at like 8 o'clock in the morning. Listen, half the squad's sick. You need to get around. The lads are coming there like coffee and trying to get over hangovers and stuff, because they've been out finishing off the season and they're in the squad. So yeah, that was the one, I think, because obviously Champions League and
would have been the first time.
Yeah,
finishing off the season.
Yeah,
finishing off the season too was out. Like they were out. They weren't just out.
That's the end of the season. They were off on their holidays. They were probably going off to Magaluf for 2 days. It was
bags were packed.
And when did you know that there was an issue? Was it waking up the next morning?
Next morning.
Because you were obviously fine then.
Yeah, I was fine. Woke up next morning.
Who did you room with?
I was with Michael Dawson. And
was he sick?
He'd been moved out of my room that night. But it was literally carnage. The lads it was coming out both ends. It was horrible. So the club were calling the league to say, can we get this game put back? They were having none of it because obviously all fair and everybody has to play at the same time and stuff, but it was just unbelievable how many lads were sick, and it was really, really bad. Like Michael Carrick was in a bad way, Defoe was in a bad way, Dawson. These lads played and they were like dying during the match, and just trying to get fluids into them, and Dioroli was flying around. But yes, it was myself and Robbie, the only two that weren't really affected, and in the end of lost the game 2-1, and we had a chance to win. I remember Lee Barnard, young lad, should have missed 2 yards out, should have scored equaliser. And
he was at the club that night, you say.
And like that morning must have been just chaos in the hotel. Then
it was just medical staff running around everywhere trying to get fluids in.
And did you expect that the game would be called off?
We kind of thought, listen, they give us some leeway. Like it's not like it was 1 or 2 players, it was half the squad and the fact that they were calling players in that hadn't been in the squad to try and build up the numbers, and they just said, no, you have to fill it with your youth team, you have to fill it with whoever's missing. The game has to go on at this time because otherwise they'll have a fair advantage to in the league, and that was it. So it was yeah.
And do you just put it down to bad luck?
I don't know, that was bad luck. How else could you put that down to apart from bad luck? Like half the team getting sick and it's the first time they're going to qualify for the Champions League, and how long? Wenger with the chef hat in there. That was the picture.
It's like a game of Cluedo. We have a new French chef tonight. He's just arrived in.
He's very tall.
He's very tall, very talented. It'll be fine. And the other game then, the Invincible game where they're celebrating.
Yeah.
What was it like in the dressing rooms at the old White Hart Lane, where the dressing rooms were pretty close together?
Yeah, very close. Yeah, it wasn't very nice. And the thing is, well, when you come through the Tottenham Academy, you just grow up to hate Arsenal. It's beaten into you basically. You don't.
In what way?
Just like it's amazing that I suppose I would have went over to Tottenham, a Liverpool fan, and then by the end of it, I'm a complete Spurs fan now. And Arsenal were like, oh my god, it was to lose to Arsenal in the academy game. We were shunned for the week, like in training. So you knew how much it meant to the team. So then to get to the senior team and then to be on the Invincibles and then to win the league, like I said, with the fact we drew and they had been so good all season, put a little bit of gloss on it. But for them to win the league at White Hart Lane was just devastating.
And were they going proper crazy in the
they went
dressing
crazy.
room?
They went absolutely completely rubbed in. Absolutely went crazy. Yeah.
What songs were they playing?
I can't even remember back
then.
Probably
weren't even playing songs back then.
I think they were
singing in chapters. We didn't have beatboxes on the side of the...
Popping champagne corks off the wall against us.
Hanging the wall.
They didn't even have Instagram then, Arsenal.
No. So is this Spurs different?
I think so. Whatever happens tonight, I think so. Yeah. But they have to sign players, like 2 transfer windows without any signings. It's not going to cut us the wage bill. We're at a tipping point with Tottenham. We're at a tipping point. I mean, it could go either way. We could be in a Champions League final because I think we could take Ajax, or we could be beaten tonight and then even out of the top 4. So it is a crucial time. Kane is a big loss, but I do believe in Son. I think he's a great player.
He seemed to perform better when Kane has not played as well. So seemed to, when Kane has not been involved, he has stepped up and scored goals, and then Ericsson, and even more of the weekend.
And even Llorente, who's not scoring. I like him. I think they're getting used to him now and how to play him. He causes hassle. I know he's not getting too many goals, but he is causing, if it was level tonight or you were down, he'd be a good guy to be coming on.
Yeah, for some set pieces. And all we need to do is score tonight.
Yeah.
Score. I mean, and now tactically it's a fascinating decisions for Pochettino to make.
It feels like one of those games that will define the two teams for the next couple of years, because a part of me thinks maybe Manchester City come out all guns blazing, he picks his best team, and this is the night we go, wow, they're the best team in Europe. They're comfortably the best team in Europe. De Bruyne runs the show in midfield. Aguero scores the goals, and they go and they win the Champions League this year, and they go and win the title, and they dominate for the next few years. If Spurs can win this, firstly what it says about Pochettino and what Spurs can achieve, but also the question marks that are going to be there over
Guardiola, who's too cautious in the first leg, didn't play De Bruyne, who surely should play tonight. So it is a major game, and it's funny that Liverpool are doing their thing on the other side of the equation.
I think if they could kind of box in and kind of don't let them score early would be big in my eyes, because if the longer you keep them out, the more nervous they get, then they start taking risks, players start panicking, then you get them on the break, which Spurs can do. So yeah, it's exciting, looking forward to it.
All right, lads, thanks a lot for coming in. That is all from us this morning on OTBAM. John, hopefully you'll be back in tomorrow morning. Will you be in? If
I'll be here. I'll be here in one way or the other, lads. I'll be here one way or the other.
You'll be like the Tottenham players. Struck
down. Stephen, Kieran, great having you in the studio. We'll have to do it again sometime. Plenty more coming up across Off the Ball today. We're back in the radio at 7 o'clock tonight. Canadian athlete Becky Scott is going to be on. She went toe-to-toe at WADA while being part of the agency's apparatus. Wednesday night rugby with Keith Wood and Rory O'Connor, and of course a football show across all the night Champions League. OTBAM live tomorrow morning from 7:45. Stephen Doyle and Andy Lee will be in the hot seat. We'll talk to you later. Good luck.